tires. Start your engines!
Ready. Green flag, green flag. All rolling. All the way out. Stay in, stay in, stay in. Come on. Bye-bye, Conan. See you later. These guys are really good. Keep digging. Stay in the gas. Hang on, dude, baby. Did not hit a thing. Why you wait so long, man? Bottom clear, chasing you down here. White flag. Hit your mark.
And welcome on in, everybody. Nice. We're early this time. We're actually starting when we said we would. But welcome on in, everybody, to NWP pre-Darlington edition. Love seeing everybody coming on out tonight. I see, wow, already on my end it says over 250 already in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, enough of me yapping. Down below me is Danny B. Talks, co-host of NWP. He's waving up at us. And us, as in me and Grant Peters, founder of Auto Racing Analytics and data analyst for Legacy Motor Club. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Happy to be here. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it was fun the first time, and we knew it was like, okay, if there's any we got to have you on for, it's got to be right before the cutoff of the regular season, the playoffs, right after Daytona when it all got shuffled out, and right before the playoffs so we can dive into literally everything. And I think let's just do that right now. I should put the like goal on, by the way. 500 likes is the like goal tonight. And FYI, for everybody who might be asking, Eric is under the damaged internet policy clock right now. So we're just seeing he's questionable status for tonight.
Also missing internet policy.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see.
He's out doing his life.
Yeah. And it might involve us later tonight. We don't know. We'll keep you on edge. But let's jump right on into Daytona because it was a wild one. And I think, I mean, we've made jokes before about waiting to talk about the winner. We got to talk about the winner on this one. Harrison Burton, the man 34th in points in total on the list before and after this race, wins his way into the playoffs with 2 races remaining in the regular season, now to 1. Danny, I want to know what you think on this one. Start us off here.
Oh man, where do we actually begin with this? So let's start with the obvious one. Harrison Burton finally getting his first career win. And some interesting stats here since we have a very big stat guy on with us today. He joined an elite company of people to win their first race in their 98 start. Can either of you guys name me a couple of those guys who also won their 98th career start?
Bill Elliott?
I think he's one of them, but there's also another person with a similar name.
Chase Elliott?
Chase Elliott.
Who else we got?
And a teammate of his, Kyle Larson, also both won in their 98th career start.
Damn. I didn't know
The
that.
difference is 2 of them are Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, and this is Harrison Burton.
Damn, every day's a school day. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Grant, what'd you think about the Harrison Burton upset?
Well, I've got a few thoughts. One of them I posted on Twitter earlier this week, which was to everybody that's going to complain about Harrison Burton now being in the playoffs. I'm upset too, because the 21 car, there are a whole 2 cars slower than him this year on non-drafting ovals. Those would be the 15 of Rick Ware Racing and the 16 of Colleague. They are the only 2 cars slower than Harrison Burton this year. However, let's be honest, so many of us want a shorter playoff field. And in reality, we have it because there's about 4 or 5 guys in the playoffs that are just kind of there. And we know that Harrison Burton is not going to win a championship. You can go ahead and clip that. Good luck to you. And we're going to have a shorter playoff field anyway. It's always fine. Good for him. I'm happy to see a guy that that a likable face win for a likable team, and the playoff implications are what they are.
See, that's kind of, I guess, a way of where I'm at with that. Like I said this when I was live after the race on basically Sunday morning, Saturday night, is that like I'm really, really happy for the underdog win. Like it's one of the best things about super speedway racing. It's that great equalizer. It's one of the great things about NASCAR. Like you don't usually get these kind of upsets in football or very often, especially when it matters in baseball or basketball. It happens, but I think in NASCAR it can be more prone to happening because there's more opportunities, whether it be a super speedway, a rain out race, just absolute bonkers races that we've seen in the past. On the other end of it, though, it's like I think you can also be disappointed that there is a wasted playoff spot in a lot of ways. You said there's basically like maybe 12 or 13 that will actually compete in this field. Whereas guys who are probably, I don't have the entire list of the points right now on in total without like the bracket and everything, but it has to be at least a couple in the top 15 or so who won't make it or have a pretty good chance of not making it. And it's like, it's one of those things for me, like where like I've never been huge on the playoff system as is. And I hate that for a lot of people, it ruins this moment because this is an amazing moment. It's a 100th win for the Wood brothers. It's, the first win for Harrison Burton with his father in the booth, calling him, not fully. You could tell he was holding it in a little bit, but calling him in a way. And there's going to be a section of fans who I think rightfully so are upset that it's like, wow, that's, the guy who was basically the equivalent of last year's 2-15 Packers just knocked out somebody, or Panthers, just knocked out somebody that was like, the 5th or 6th seed in the NFC kind of thing. Which
yeah. For real though, this feels like I'm watching. If I was watching college football and Alabama randomly lost to the University of Carleton, Mississippi, and they beat Alabama somehow, and they're automatically in the college football playoffs. That's their only win of the season. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and it's like I don't blame Harrison. Like I don't like the crap that's like he's getting tagged in responses. Like it's not Harrison's fault. It's the ones who made the rules. It is fully blame the game. Don't blame the player. But overall, like I kind of push it aside because, like you said, we know how this is going to go. When the checkered flag falls at Bristol, he might be a full race worth of points back because he is capital S slow.
I will say this. I have a feeling because of some of the people we've seen win this year, it's going to make picking who our first round exits are a little bit easier for us when we get to that part.
It will.
Atlanta's still in the first round. Oh, that's all I'm saying.
And to be fair, Harrison has been, while the finishes aren't there, like, at least from my recollection, he's raced up front in these races before. It's not like he's some schmuck that just got up there because of everyone crashing every time.
Yeah, hey, what a huge drastic comparison, though, compared to his very first Daytona experience when he flipped with Fox missing his flip.
I was there. I didn't miss that flip. I like pointed that out, and I think I put it in our chat. I'm like, oh my God, that flip was insane. What did it look like on TV? And the first thing I get back is Danny going, there was a flip?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
We didn't know until long after because that was in the era where producers were telling them, don't watch the race, only watch the screen.
But overall, like I said, I'm happy for the Burton family, for Harrison. I don't know necessarily if this like changes his outlook for next year. Like the man still got the pink slip from the Wood brothers, unfortunately, for his end. But I would love seeing him drop to Xfinity for a year or so and then see if he can improve.
I guess I can kind of go off that direction. Where do we think his career goes from here? Because personally, I don't. Even though, yes, he has a win, so does Cole Custer. But I don't. Even though Cole Custer's coming back, I still don't see him as a Cup caliber driver. He's going to have a Cup ride because he's Cole Custer. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think that's the right series for him.
That's interesting. Where do you guys think he go? Because I could see him doing a part-time Xfinity thing. just betting on himself in certain races with the funding that he can go out there and run basically how he did in the Xfinity Series before he went to Cup. I believe he had 4 wins in
I mean, I
one
don't
year.
even think he necessarily has to worry about part-time. I think he can be a full-time Xfinity driver. Um, I mean, JGR hasn't got anything set up fully for next year, do they yet? I mean, I don't know.
They probably do, but
My,
there's nothing announced, right?
my problem with the Harrison Burton situation is he'll be in his age 24 season already next year. And so at that point, like the amount of guys that go cup racing a second time after that is so small that I think you have to do something really impressive. And I don't know that the Xfinity Series has the caliber of competition to really impress a cup team anymore because you look at who's in that Xfinity field. We don't know if Chandler's still going to be there next year. Justin Allgaier is obviously, I mean, he's still, I think, the benchmark of that series. And beyond that, it's a very odd mix of some young drivers with some decent talent, a lot of young drivers with funding, and not a ton of excellent cars. So if I was him, I would be looking for a truck ride because I personally think that that's a better development step to Cup, and I think that you can turn more heads by having a bigger truck season that you may struggle to have as big of a season in Xfinity Series against sketchy competition.
I mean, look at Zane Smith. He took the
Yeah.
jump. Corey Haim's been getting a lot of look, and he's done Xfinity races, but he's been full time in trucks. So I mean, I think that could be a valid option too. I just worry this late in the season if there's been nothing on a good end team in either of those series, like what could be done at this point, and how much does a win at Daytona, even though I believe he earned it, how much does that really vie or change anyone's opinions with it?
Well, it's kind of funny, you talk about going to the truck series, and I was actually curious. It's like, let's actually look back at that. He never won a truck series race, actually. And it's kind of bizarre, actually, when you take a look at the details of his career. Now, down in the Arkham Menard series, he didn't light the world on fire down there either. He got one win a year between 2017 and 2019. He didn't run all the races, though. But I guess he did do more though over the Arkham Menards East Series in 2017. He got 5 wins there, ended up winning a championship there. But in the Truck Series, he ran one race in 2016, 6 and 17, 8 and 18. He ran a full season in 2019. He got 7 top fives, 11 top tens. Never won down there. And in 2020, he is promoted into the Xfinity Series full time, where even at the start of the year, he was showing a lot of signs of success. He got a win very early on. I think at Auto Club was where he got his first one. And he won 4 times that season. And after that, he was promoted into Cup starting in 2022. He ran a full season of Xfinity in 21, and he kind of regressed that year. He only got 10 top fives compared to 15 the year before. Same amount of top tens though, 22, and not a single win in 2021. So honestly, it's like his career was on a good trajectory. People will kind of question why him going to the Xfinity Series because he got no truck starts. No truck wins, and then all of a sudden showed a lot of signs of success. But he was also in JGR equipment then, and all of a sudden it's like it flatlined or actually borderline wet nosedived in Cup so far. And then all of a sudden, boom, here's a win.
I'll be interested to see though where he lands in all this, because I do think he's a bigger domino if he does go down to either series. Now, he wasn't the only underdog that actually had a good run at Daytona. Cody Ware got a 4th place run, was right up there at the finish. And the interesting one that's been getting a lot of talk this past week, for very, I'd say even almost odd reasons, is Parker Retzlaff, who was in his 2nd start, drafted up there with Harrison Burton, was as high as 2nd in the last lap, fell back to 7th. Chevrolet, from what the reports are, is actually mad at him for not helping Kyle Busch at the end.
I mean, I get why they're mad, but that's not a Chevrolet team car. I mean, I don't know why they should be taking orders from them.
My question is like, what's he supposed to do? It's gridlocked with 2 lines. Is he supposed to?
He's supposed to bail out of the top line and hit the brakes. That's what they want him to do, which is a load of garbage. This is my problem with the key partner system is you've got teams like this who are receiving absolutely no technical support, and then Chevy's going to get upset at them when they don't do what they want. And it's like, man, I mean,
And
you didn't help them when they needed it. What do you expect from them?
Peter Estrada brings up a decent point here. The 62 was built at RCR, and yeah, even you can tell by the number font it is RCR affiliated, but that's a team that they only show up to super speedways because they want to win. They put all their efforts into a super speedway car that gives them a shot to contend for wins. They have contended for wins almost every year. We've been seeing the 62 show up since, gosh, what year we first start seeing them? I don't recall exactly now.
Maybe 2018 or 19. I remember it was like 2019.
Yeah,
Brendan Gaughan was in the lead in the air in that car.
Yes.
So I get that, like, yeah, they built it and yeah, they want this and that, but it's like, man, this only makes me more at this point as a fan start wanting like that 4th OEM to come in to just sort of like, oh, okay, let's even out the playing field a little bit. Let's like take a little away from some of these teams that, or some of these manufacturers that are really, I think, putting different teams in unfair situations. I find the team order side of that so dumb. Like, pull out or crash a field or do whatever. It's so dumb to me as a racing fan. Like, I want to see somebody go for the win like that. I want to see another Brad Keselowski 2009, maybe with less heroics and flips and stuff like that, but I would love to see something like that. It would be a really cool story. Parker Retzlaff ended up being a really successful Cup driver, and his first win was at Daytona under the lights, this amazing finish. Like, it would be something that everyone would look back on amazingly, and nobody would remember the team order part a year from now.
Beard Racing is probably the most fun team to follow throughout the year because you're only going to see them on super speedways, but that's what makes them fun because they know, hey, we're not gonna be competitive at Bristol, we're not gonna be competitive at Charlotte, so why bother showing up? We're gonna go where we have the best chance to win. And sadly, the owner Beard passed away a couple years ago, but the fact that they still continue the racing operation, the fact that they still show up and give an Xfinity guy their big break at a Cup Super Speedway race, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see them show up. I feel like we're probably going to see Live Fast become kind of like that. It seems just become a car that only shows up to the super speedways because they know that's their best shot to contend for anything. So it makes the racing fun in that ways, and it's kind of the return of the field fillers, but these field fillers are actually coming to the races where they're going to be competitive.
So road ringers, we got plate ringers, super speedway slingers, I guess. Now there was many different things that happened in this race, action wise. First off, the first car out was Daniel Suarez, who caught fire in a very interesting way with some fuel overflow on pit road, being caught on fire by basically the backfiring as here come the sirens. They're coming to try and save that Suarez car.
I heard you talk about fire. I mean,
yeah. It's just a very odd way. Jesus Christ! Now they're honking at people. This is every week. Probably
people going the wrong way in that roundabout around you.
Oh, God, you would not believe. Trust me. I avoid it. But that's kind of the subject. Until another one flies by. That in and of itself, I think, would be something that we'd all be looking at like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's the craziest thing all race. If it wasn't Daytona, there were big wrecks and 1.5, 2 flips, whichever way you want to go at it. The first one was old Michael McDowell getting turned in front of the field and then kind of pinched by the 22.
We were going to have Flipgate again until the actual one happened.
Well, the funny thing about that to me was Steve Letarte for the next 10 minutes started saying that, that right side shark fin, like, that is why it's there. It did all of that, keeping it on the ground and all that, blah, blah, blah. And then 10 minutes later, you just see Josh Berry, take flight on the backstretch. and you just hear the booth go silent about the shark fin.
And the craziest part is like you just felt it was about to happen. Like the second he got turned sideways and just see all that clear air, you're like, he's about to go, isn't he? Yep, there he goes. And it's funny also if you look at him and Cindric, someone pointed this out on Twitter because you start to see there's a frame where both cars have the identical amount of lift. They were both going to take off, but because Barry's the one in front, he caught that air and deflected the rest of it. That brought the two back down. They were both trying to go over, but the one in the front caught the wind first, and he was the one who went over.
Can you imagine if they had just synchronized?
Synchronized flipping would be wild.
It's a double rainbow. It's a double rainbow in the sky.
We've seen synchronized spinning, synchronized flipping, because of the wind and the way it works is a lot harder to pull off. And I'm glad we didn't see that.
Well, I think it kind of brings up the top of the conversation is like, yeah, maybe that right side shark fin did a little bit, though. From what I know, what Eric had said is that he talked to a few people, on the aerodynamic and engineering side who are like, yeah, they ain't gonna do anything. Like that might do a little bit, but minimal. And it sounds like they're going to be having that on all of the 1.5 miles on up tracks the rest of the year. So they think it makes at least that much of a difference. They won't have it at Darlington or any of the short tracks. I don't know, but they might have it at road courses. I doubt it, though. I'm not completely sure about that. But it's just kind of more along that conversation of the fact that in, 5 days we had, or I guess 7 days if you count the Xfinity race, we had 3.5, 4 flips, and most of those were next gen cars.
Yep.
Just saying that turtle shell underneath. This isn't just because it's like a cheap Matchbox car. That's just how it looks.
It's not just a toy. That's the way it looks.
I think and don't get me wrong, I'm not in the, oh my God, we got to slow the cars down. They were going 201 miles an hour.
No, that's the crazy thing. If people want more, I kind of want more horsepower too. But if we had more horsepower, what's going to happen then?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, we didn't have this issue before. There's just, when it's so smooth underneath, then on top of it, being the way that this car is already, like, it's just going to kind of make it prone to it. What it reminds me of, and this is what I brought up on Sunday, or Saturday, I should say. What it reminds me of is about the third year of the COT, 2009, we saw all those, in 10, we saw those flips. And everyone's talking about the wing. They're talking about how the back of the car left so much air underneath it. And there was an obvious kind of design flaw when it came to that kind of incident. And everyone points at the spoiler being the big reason there were no flips. Well, NASCAR also changed the entire back of the car with the COT back in 2010. Like, if you look at those cars from the 5th race of 2010 on back to 2007, and then the 6th race of 2010 through 2012, like, you can see a noticeable difference in how much the back of the car kind of goes down towards the racetrack at that angle. Like, there's a way different angle to it. They added a piece. I don't think that it's necessarily the same thing because it's a different reason that they're kind of going over. But that's why I'm not like too worried right now and wanting to sound the alarm bells and slow the cars down, any of that stuff. I do think if this is a thing for the end of this year and then it starts being into next year and towards the end of next year around this time, that's where I'm gonna be like, all right, like we need to find some real solutions because these teams are only going to get faster. Like, they're not going to slow down unless NASCAR makes them. But
it's kind of funny you mentioned that. I actually started thinking about 2010, and I'm watching some crashes from 2010, and forgot Casey Kane had an incident at Pocono. He was actually just kind of slammed very, very hard after spinning out and coming back onto the back straightaway. So he did catch air with the spoiler, but I'm trying to get to the AJ Allmendinger flip. I know there was several things in 2009 where some cars flipped, but really, I guess the biggest ones of the wing being involved for the reason they flipped over was Ryan Newman, Carl Edwards, and Brad Keselowski at Atlanta in 2010. Those were the biggest culprits where they had a blowover. But I think Allmendinger also had a blowover with the spoiler. I'm trying to get to that. Oh, here it is.
Hold on. It was something.
I just want to throw one one thing out there. I'm with Denny Hamlin. I don't know that it's such an awful thing if these cars do flip over. I know that's probably a hot take,
I don't
and we
think
shouldn't
so.
we shouldn't we shouldn't be trying to have cars flip over, obviously. But I think that it's a lot more dangerous having cars hit things than it is having cars fly through the air.
Yeah,
As long as they're not getting so high that we got to worry about them getting into catch fences and grandstands and stuff like that. Like, I think stuff on the backstretch, as long as we know that this thing's not going to give anybody a concussion if it lands on anybody on a head, like motorsports are dangerous. That's
yeah.
part of it. I think that if you take the danger out of it, then you get some of the product that we've seen in the past few years, which is that guys drive and wreck each other like everybody's Superman and don't worry about any consequences. And
I agree.
I'm not saying we should have unsafe cars, but maybe this isn't quite time to sound the alarm bells.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's like a year or two from now and it's the same thing or it gets worse, then it's like alarm bell time. Like, where I was most worried about the Josh Berry one, because you saw when he flipped and then spun like a top, like that there wasn't really too much give, and that's where we don't want to have a ton of give. The part I was worried about is he's upside down and he slammed into the wall. And that's like a very precarious angle. That's my big worry, though, is kind of what you mentioned. As long as it doesn't go to the grandstands, it's on the backstretch. It's like, I wouldn't want to tempt that. I know that they're going to flip. I know there's going to be hard crashes, and I'm like, that's just NASCAR in a nutshell. I mean, I think the Gen 6 era, even, it was almost a flip or two a year, give or take. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was, 6 to 12 years ago, give or take, whatever it was. But I that's the only worry I have, is that where it's going to get to the point where at some point it's going to be on the front stretch and it's going to get into the grandstands. Not the grandstands, but the catch fence, I should say. And I just really rather they be proactive. If it happens still, it happens still. Like, cars go fast, they're going to take off.
Is a positive with this. I think one thing that is a positive with this car in that situation is, you think about the old car, when that thing would hit a wall, it would just fall apart.
Yes.
And this car maintains some pretty solid integrity. So if it does get into a fence, it's going to stay pretty together, and you're not going to have to worry about a ton of debris, which makes it, I'd say less bad than the Gen 6 car actually getting into a fence.
And it's not sheet metal.
Yeah,
that too.
Like, it's still gonna hurt.
I feel like I'd stand a halfway decent chance of composite body coming at me versus sheet metal a little bit.
This is the time I wish that I would have asked our buddy old John Ramos, who was at Milwaukee this past weekend, for his video. He had a video because he was like, I think, third row or something, for the Austin Dillon flip in 2015 at Daytona. Like, just to be like, it could be worse. But if we have a flip somehow at Darlington this weekend, that's where I'm going to be like, at that point, I'm just going to put my hands up and be like, I don't know.
I mean, I've seen crazier things in racing.
Yeah, remember, was it Bristol? We've had multiple times, always Xfinity cars that managed to get
just randomly right up on the wall. I was there for one of those, for Casey Kane, 2010. I was there for that one.
I was at one in New Smyrna, I think in 2022, I think it was. There was a wreck like that, and it was just one of those like, well, damn, that happened.
Logano 09 at Dover. You just a huge pile up, and all of a sudden someone just slams into him enough that picks him up and flips him over down the banking. Speaking of 2010, I did go back and verify. Allmendinger in that 2010 redesigned car, he did blow over. He blew over, though, because he was spinning sideways. Air caught underneath the car and just kind of, similar to what we're seeing now, just kind of picks it up on the side and up he goes.
Well, and I'll say this too. Like, you can definitely tell, especially on the old tweeter machine, you can tell some of the people who either never went back to watch or didn't watch live the Gen 4 era, where it was like, oh yeah, this is just normal super speed. Elliott Sadler another year, Scott Riggs, and then like you name it. Like it was almost a shock if you didn't get a blowover or a flip at a super speedway back then.
Let's talk to Rusty Wallace about his blowovers.
I'm pretty sure he said he had like dirt in his ear for like a solid 2 weeks after that. But somebody else who had a bit of a rough night was Corey LaJoie. Whether fairly or not, I can already see Grant, his reaction. Corey LaJoie. So there was that big one where he got into the back of Noah Gragson, I believe it was. To be fair, he did get bumped at one point by Kyle Larson. I want to ask both of you, because I saw it was probably 75-25, especially when I polled people. But it was like, is that on Corey LaJoie or is that on Kyle Larson? Because I personally think LaJoie, I think it didn't help that Larson got into him in that situation, but that's just drafting tracks. Like, it's not like it was necessarily intentional by any means. But I still think the majority goes to LaJoie. I'm actually going to put a poll in the chat while you guys answer.
Well, I don't think your poll is going to matter because the whole world's going to put it on LaJoie, whether it was his fault or
true.
not. I've got a soft spot for Corey LaJoie because I feel for the man, because people seem to forget very fast that this guy, he would at times wipe the floor with guys like Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott back in his ARCA days. Like, he's not a slouch. And I appreciate Corey LaJoie because he was the first Twitter follower of Auto Racing Analytics. And now here we are, and he's getting kind of destroyed by Carson Hocevar. And I want to pull up the stats to defend it, but he's just not giving me a good case to make anymore. Like, for years, he did outperform what he had. And I don't know if the pressure's just gotten to him this year or what. But I think Hocevar is one of those guys, a lot like Ross Chastain, that I think this car really suits his driving style. And so he's been able to come in as a rookie. And mind you, not a true rookie, because he's made a start in Spire before, and he ran almost half a season for us at Legacy last year. So he had a little experience coming in, but LaJoie just hasn't been able to hang with him. He's about, on average, maybe 4 spots slower than Hocevar every race by what I have. And he's making a lot of poor judgment decisions. He's one of the most frequent crashers in the Cup Series. I posted that on Twitter this week, and he's right up there with Larson as one of the most frequent wrecks. And this was another one where it's like, at lack of situational awareness. Like, I don't know if that's entirely his fault, but why are we making that move right now anyway? You know, like, everybody's trying to come to pit road. What does this matter?
What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, when it comes to Corey LaJoie, I'm like, yeah, he did have moments where I think he outperformed the equipment of, say, the 32 car. But as his career has progressed, I feel like he's still, like he was saying, yes, he did, do really good back in his ARCA days. But it seems to me that Corey LaJoie still has the driving mentality of his younger self at times. And I don't know that he's fully adapted over the years compared to some of these other drivers that he started racing with. He hasn't, been able to grow himself past the point that he is as a racer. That's just my opinion on him. And I have nothing but, from everything I've seen, I think, he's a good person behind the scenes, everything I've heard. But just in terms of a race car driver, I don't think, personally, I think he'd be better suited full-time in the truck series of like Spire, keep him in Spire and like a full-time truck program. But that's where I see, him. His dad made a name for himself down in the Busch series. And I think at this point, Corey might need to look at making a name for himself down in the lower series. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, we've seen some great guys make legendary careers, like Ron Hornaday, like Todd Bodine, like Matt Crafton today, Justin Allgaier. We've seen guys make legendary careers down in the lower series. I would put them up there as being some of the greatest drivers, of all time, but because of their success in the lower series. So I'm also scared that Corey's waited too long to make that move, and he might not be able to get in there to the right he needs for that either. Really
quick, so I did put a poll, but I put a third option. I'll end it right now. So 54% were putting it on Corey. 33% though said it was just racing. It's super speedway racing. Things happen. 12% put it on Larson of those that voted. And I want to bring something else up because, at least from the angle we saw, I'm not going to necessarily defend because I didn't see this angle. Nobody sent it to me. More, they just sent me what they saw. But from the TV angle, it looked like he came awful close to LePaging the back of the pack. It was rough. I will say I had a couple people that I know who were in the stands at Daytona who said TV didn't do it justice. It wasn't as close as TV made it look. I'll at least put that out there in his defense. But it looked really rough on TV, and you could see some of the cars swerve up to miss him. Like he was like, if you watch like how he is on the yellow line, like he comes up, wheels get over both yellow lines, and then he goes down in the corner. Which, to be fair to him as well, not to necessarily the situational awareness, but to the rules, is that like you can to a certain point entering the corner. I believe it is legal to get up onto the racing surface to get up to speed because of the way the banking is, and because, like, I mean, for instance, I think 2012 Michael Waltrip didn't, and he was on the banking, went up out of 2 from the apron and spun himself out. But it was just a very rough night to be Corey LaJoie, or a Corey LaJoie fan at that, from the looks at it.
I still don't think it was near. I don't think what he did when it comes to nearly LePage in the field was as close as Derek Cope was in, what was it, was it a dual race? He almost did that.
Oh, where he was like nearly stopped on the backstretch?
Yeah.
God, I think that was like 2020 or 2021. I remember, I think I was there for that.
2020.
Yeah, because I was there for that race, and we're just like, wait, who the hell was that? It was wild. But I think that's about it for the race itself. I think the super speedway package and the racing overall, I think this is probably the best Daytona race. And I would argue, actually, I'd say of the traditional super speedways, both of them, I think this is the best one of the next gen era, personally. Like, I
agree. Still work to do, but
yes,
I think it was the best product we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean,
we got a better finish than the Daytona 500, at least. I will say that.
Yeah, and I'm not like, I saw a lot of people being like, this is the best race I've ever seen drafting wise. I'm like, no, it's good.
Atlanta was better. Atlanta was excellent this.
Well, Atlanta's like designed for these cars too. Like
it is, yes.
Yeah.
But I still like, we were sitting at like that sort of a little above average to average super speedway racing. Now we're in good super speedway racing. Like we're in, I know a lot of people like that 13 to about 16, 17 package. I was personally, outside of the Rex, a big fan of the end of the Gen 6. It reminded me of a lot of the end of the Gen 4, middle of Gen 4 era. And I would love to get back to that, as much as drivers and many fans wouldn't. But this is still really good. And I don't want people discounting that. And I don't want people blowing it out of proportion. I saw people being like, why would you ever want to watch something like a Gen 4 race when you have this? And I'm like, oh, well, this is good, but like, we can, but life's good, but it can be better. But let's go kind of more big picture here. And I'm going to pop up 2 points battles on screen. And Grant, you'll definitely have a lot, I think, to add to these with statistics and analytics. So first one we'll do is the playoff cut line. I'll pop on screen. We have 5 drivers who are currently in the cut line battle. Martin Truex Jr. in 14th plus 58. Ty Gibbs plus 39 in 15th. 21 between Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace, and then 27 back to Ross Chastain. If I'm not mistaken, if nobody under Chris Buescher wins, all Martin Truex has to do to qualify for the playoffs is start. Because you can only make up 55 or 54 points a race if you finish second and win both the stages, and the competition finishes last.
Well, I think you're still going to make it. Didn't Martin Truex have like 100-point gap not even that long ago?
It was up there. Yeah.
He did have a very large gap. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the rough part, because at least when I looked back, Bubba Wallace has been very good at Darlington as of late, especially for Bubba Wallace's standards. While Chastain might not have the finishes, he's run up front in a ton of these races too.
He's no one to bat an eye at.
Chris Buescher, he could have won this race in the spring and not had this conversation. And if you also remember, Ty Gibbs finished second in the spring too.
He did.
So, like, I don't think it's a walk in the park necessarily. Grant, what analytics do we have about this battle in particular?
So what I'm looking at right now is the point gap. And as far as I'm concerned, unless Chris Buescher makes a mistake, this thing's as good as done. Like, it's going to take a sizable number in the difference in performance between Bubba and Buescher to get it done. As you said, all of them are very good at Darlington, and I expect all of them to bring their A game, and I expect it to be very difficult for anybody to generate a gap. That being said, is it impossible? Absolutely not. What I would be more concerned about is who can win this race. Because any one of them could win it. And if that happens, then whoever didn't is kind of is toast because you're going to struggle to catch Ty Gibbs as well because he's probably also going to run up front. I don't see where any of them are going to be able to gain a size enough edge in points. I don't see anybody that struggles here to make up the gap. As far as who's going to run the best of all of them, it's kind of what do you value? Chris Buescher has been very, very good on the intermediate tracks this year. He ran really well at Kansas, obviously. You mentioned he probably should have won this race potentially in the spring, and his teammate did. Um, and Chastain has been really good at Darlington historically. Like this has been one of his playgrounds his whole career. So it's kind of just what do you value? History, recent success, or team success? Like
And this goes all the way back to his first time getting out of Chip Ganassi Racing, getting a few starts. Had the infamous moment with Kevin Harvick, but it's because he was running in the front there. He's pretty good at Darlington.
So I'm also looking to if there is one of those guys, like Chastain or Bubba Wallace or somebody even below them winning. Martin Truex Jr. then has a 37-point gap to Chris Buescher, which I think is still pretty sizable, but he's been hemorrhaging points. His last 4 finishes are 27, 37, 24th, 24th, and his last 5 at Darlington, the 5 races in the next gen era, are finish-wise even worse. He has not had a top 10 since his 4th in 2021 at the Southern 500. He has not finished higher than 18th in the next gen era. 25th, 18th, 31st, 31st, 24th with 3 DNFs in that time as well. It's been very rough, and a lot of it's bad luck. I'll give him that. A lot of it is bad luck. He has had speed, but it's like that team can't get out of its way, it seems like.
I'm just going to say this right now for Bubba Wallace. This is it's everyone's last chance to make it in if you haven't. But for him in particular, 2311 needs to take everything they know about what makes Tyler Reddick's setup so good. They need to throw all that at the 23 car this weekend. Tyler Reddick is well secured into the playoffs. He's actually leading the regular season title. He might even lock it up, but they need to get Bubba in. It's their last chance to do it. And he's had good runs here. I think he got 7th in the spring, if I recall.
I think he's at 4. Let me check. I have the numbers on it. 4 straight top 10s here.
But the problem is, and I heard Bubba talking with Alex Weaver after Daytona this weekend, and he just said himself, like, it's not acceptable. Got to win these races. That's the only reason we're not gonna be in the playoffs because Harrison Burton won. We didn't win. And it's like, okay, but Bubba, it's still not over yet. And when he starts getting in that mode where he kind of has already defeated himself in his head, I feel like that sticks around for him too much. And for that reason, I'm not gonna say Bubba Wallace wins and gets himself in the playoffs unless something drastic happens to someone like Chris Buescher. But with that said, I think that they'll have a chance, but it might only be as good as second place. But I'm going to throw out a hypothetical, just for fun scenario here. Team owner Denny Hamlin is really good at Darlington, and let's say he's just having another great Denny Hamlin race at Darlington.
He's not pulling over, Danny.
Bubba
He's
has climbed into second place, and he can't get up there, and he wants to get that other car into the playoffs. What does he do, guys?
He goes for it, gets him a better shot of a championship. I mean, Denny will compete for a championship. Bubba Wallace could luck his way into the round of 8, I think. But I don't see that 23 team. That 23 team is too.
And I agree with you. That goes back to what I was just saying. When Bubba knows that pressure is on him, I just don't feel like he can perform to the level he needs to. And I hate to be a doubter of him, but that's kind of been the truth. He gets in his head sometimes, and that's just kind of how he is. And I would never see him getting far enough to be there.
Go for it, Grant.
I've got a few question marks about the strategic decisions of both Trackhouse and 2311 as of late. And the 2311 one I could justify a little bit more. But let's talk pit crews for a minute, because pit crews are way more important than people seem to immediately recognize because it's so hard to pass cars on track anymore because everyone's so good. The easiest way to get free track position is on pit road. So first of all, let's just talk 2311 situation. By my metrics, let's just use I've got a 10 stop an average of the fastest 10 pit stops from each team throughout the year.
Mhm.
So we're just going to use that as our ranking for every pit crew. I've got the 23 pit crew as being the 20th best crew on pit road, and his teammate in the 45 has around a 15th place pit crew. I would personally want to swap those with about 10 races to go to try and get Bubba in if I was worried about it. Now, Tyler Reddick is also competing for the regular season points title, so I can kind of understand that decision. The one I can't understand is Trackhouse. Because if I'm Trackhouse, let's just be super honest here. Who's more likely to win you a championship, Ross Chastain or Daniel Suarez? You can both answer that question.
Yeah, Ross.
Ross Chastain.
Okay.
I mean, he's proved he can win the last race of the season at Phoenix last year, and he's proved he can get to championship 4 the year before that.
Amen, Danny. So, if you, hypothetically speaking, had the 25th best pit crew on pit road and the third best pit crew on pit road, where would you place them?
With the best shot at a
Not
championship.
Trackhouse. Ross Chastain has the 25th fastest pit crew on pit road, and the third fastest pit crew is on that 99 car, which has been locked into the playoffs since week 2 of the season.
Yeah.
Why have we not flipped those? Like, I think that if they do that, I think Ross makes the playoffs. That's a massive gap in pit crew. And it's not just this year. Suarez's pit crew was about that much quicker than Ross's last year, too. You got to go all the way back to 2022 when Ross almost makes the championship 4 to find a season where Ross had a better pit crew than Suarez. And I'm not really sure what the decision process is there, but to me, that doesn't make sense.
And you have to think how many times that could have maybe gotten him a spot or two above where he'd get, say, taken out, like at Michigan. I mean, this team hemorrhages
absolutely.
Points too. Texas, Michigan.
Ross, I think it's just overpushed so many times because he thinks he needs to get track position. And it's like, if you're just handing it to him, he may not overstep his bounds.
I would say, looking back on it now, Ross's arguably best chance to win was Nashville, and they've got to be kicking themselves that they didn't go back to back with that one because they were in it until they weren't.
They got taken out though. Like that was one like he didn't do anything. Like, and to be fair, he really hasn't done too much wrong at different races as well that he's lost a lot of points. But it's like here comes the sirens. They're trying to save Ross's season.
It's too late.
Yeah. I mean, you're 27 points out at this point, and that's the thing is like if somebody underneath Ross Chastain wins, which I think I want to kind of like go over to that side of it for a bit here. But if somebody behind him wins, he's got to make up 45 points. And I'm sorry, he's not making up 45 points on Ty Gibbs. Like, he's just not. Ty Gibbs would have to blow another engine, have the forbidden chocolate milk again, and Ross have a stellar night and all but win. And then still have Busher and Bubba Wallace run bad at one of their best tracks and fastest tracks as of late. But Grant, I want to kind of move over to which guys are we not looking at? I know, we talked a little before the show. Some people are talking about Eric Jones. He's won here before. Others are talking, say, about Kyle Busch. What can you kind of tell us analytically with all that too?
Yeah. So as far as let's address the Kyle Busch thing first. I'm just not seeing it. RCR's intermediate track pace hasn't been there, and I don't personally know why suddenly it would be there. That being said, as far as the Eric Jones things go from the inside at Legacy Motor Club, yes, he's done it before. And here's why I think it could happen again. I don't know that it'll happen this year, but I think it could happen again someday. But if there was ever a time that he's going to turn this season around, it's now. Because the switch to Toyota, everybody knows, has been rough. And I think it's easy for people to point at Legacy Motor Club and be like, what are you doing? But quite frankly, you just don't know the whole story every time, which is that every team's got their own, or every manufacturer has their own simulator that we run setups on and try and figure out how we're going to set up the car before we get to the track because you don't got much practice time and not infinite changes you can make. Last year we were running Chevy. They've got their own sim. This year we're running a Toyota. That sim is completely different. They are not the same thing. in the long run, I personally do think that Toyota simulation is going to be the better option. But you can't just learn how to set it up immediately because there's plenty of changes that we have to make to it to say, hey, this is how much grip we expect our cars to have. And then if we get to the track and what we told the sim the car was going to be doesn't end up being accurate, then nothing we made on our setup is accurate either. So as we go back to these tracks for a second time, we're going to have more data on how to set up our simulator. And so I'm going to expect that we're going to run quicker than we did the first time. And we still have all that Toyota support. We're just trying to figure out how to use it. So Darlington's now the second track that we've been to for a second time. The first one was Richmond. We've never run well at Richmond. We've run well at Darlington before, and now we've got some data to go off of. So if there was ever an opportunity for us to turn this year around, it's going to be here.
On top of you guys who could turn it around, which is very possible, especially you look at Eric Jones. If Eric Jones just has a decent car, he's proven he'll run top 10 every time. Like, so on top, moving with that too, who's the guy from below Ross Chastain all the way back to the last possible eligible driver? Who's the one that the data says is the guy who can come up and surprise us?
Yep. I've got two actually. Go ahead, Danny.
Can I give my opinion before I let the guy who truly knows the stats get into it? The one that comes to my mind, and people may not like this,
I know where you're going.
but the one who comes to my mind is someone who won very recently and it got took away, and that's Austin Dillon. And because I'm looking back here at some of the stats, I actually ran the numbers in 16 starts. He has an average finish about 15th here. He's had in 2017, he finished fourth in the September race. In 2020, he finished second in that race. And then also 2020, he also had that strong run at Richmond. We talked about that a few weeks ago after he won, where he had, he had a great run there, and it ultimately didn't get it done. He also didn't get it done in 2020 here. Most races he's done better in the September race than he has in the spring. We've had two races. Not every time, but most times he has. And knowing that they brought out a good car and they were the car to beat at Richmond, who's to say Austin Dillon doesn't unload another good piece at Darlington and shocks us once again? Not banking on it. And spoiler alert, kind of what he was saying about Kyle Busch. It doesn't matter who picks what. Kyle Busch is my suck pick. I'm just going to spoil that one. We'll get to that later. But Austin Dillon, though, I have more faith in him, oddly enough, at this track.
All right, so Danny, I got a lot of respect for the work that you do, but I do find it to be a bold strategy to select the guy who had the 31st fastest car here in the spring. The two guys that I'm keeping an eye on are both from SHR. I'm sizing up Chase Briscoe and Josh Berry, because Josh Berry had the 9th fastest car here in the spring and Briscoe had the 10th fastest car. They're guys who are both typically good on the lower grip racetracks. They tend to thrive in those environments. SHR has seen an uptick in performance as the season's gone on. They started out pretty darn dreadful. And that was kind of in the midst of them just starting to turn it around, and they put together two really good runs. You go back to the year prior too, and Rodney Childers in that 4 car, they had the 5th fastest car here in the Southern 500 in the fall for them. So if there was anybody that was going to spoil the party, I'm looking at Chase Briscoe and Josh Berry as your most likely to pop up there.
Have we seen people flip one week and win the next week? Has that happened?
It'd be fun. I don't know.
Interesting. The chat will probably let us know. Like, they'll let us know. By the way, I asked the chat if we'd get a new winner at Darlington. Almost split 50-50, 52% to 48% saying no, we won't. But I mean, I'll be honest, I could see any of the guys. I'll put the cut line back on the screen for a moment. I could see any of these 5 guys winning if they don't get in their own way. The problem is they're all in this position in some way or another because they got in their own way. But
that's true.
I could see all 5 of them up there. There is one other point battle before we get into the rest of it. I love how before the show I'm like, guys, we're going to move this show quick. We don't have that much really to talk about. No, we do. The regular season championship. is now down to 3 drivers, and those drivers are Tyler Reddick, who currently leads over Kyle Larson, 17 back, I believe, and 18 back to Chase Elliott. Who we got in that one? I'm personally taking the 45.
I'm taking Tyler Reddick. Personally, I think he's got a legit shot to win this weekend, and that would definitely lock it up. But I think he will. There's no reason why he shouldn't be in the top 5 majority tonight.
Yeah, I'm also going Reddick. I think that Larson has blown this thing. I think this was his championship to have, and he kind of tossed it away. Reddick was the fastest car here in the spring. Like he's going to show up and probably do it again. Also, I want to just plug one thing here real quick. I see the chat talking a lot about just where you can find my stuff. Autoracinganalytics.com. If you guys want to see any of the stats I'm talking about, it's all over there. And then you can make your own points about it in the chat. Go right ahead.
And I know he got the waiver, but is it safe to say Charlotte ruined Larson's regular season championship now?
I mean,
come on.
yeah.
Danny, don't ruin the fun here. We wanted him at Indy anyway. He was in the right city.
But it's true. I mean, I believe Allgaier was running like 13th when the caution came out. And I think Kyle Larson's a better driver than Allgaier. Now, Kyle Larson also could have wrecked it out. He's been pretty damn good at that this year.
Yeah.
But he'd at least be leading. I won't say necessarily if he'd win or not, because it'd still be close with him and Tyler Reddick. And Reddick, his Net 45 team, have been bad fast. But I mean, there's so many other times he's crashed himself too this season. Grant, I think you were talking about his crash rate is insanely high this year.
Oh, it's
your
just
Pac-Man
dreadful.
graph.
Yeah, so I've got these team rankings graphs. So you can see them on autoracinganalytics.com. But I've got one for every driver that shows all of their metrics in like this circle. And the bigger your circle is, the better that you are in that statistic. And so like over here, we got all the speed rankings. And then over here, we got like your restarts and then your passing and defending. And then up here, you've got your crashing. And so you go all the way around, and Larson is almost a perfect circle until you get to the crashing part. And there's just a giant empty triangle because he actually is the Pac-Man of NASCAR and can't keep a car going straight. He's got a crash rate this year of over 50%. That's brutal. It's like only Kyle Busch and there's a couple others that are worse, but it's pretty bad.
By the way, the chat 78% is going, or 77% now is going Tyler Reddick to win it, 17% to the 5, and Mr. Popular Chase Elliott at 7% in case something goes wrong for both, which I mean, Chase Elliott's not necessarily bad here. He's just, when you look at how fast Tyler Reddick was, and if Kyle Larson doesn't crash himself, it's stiff competition, even if he is a point behind the 5, but it's still a pretty damn good battle, all things considered.
Side note, thinking of battles and getting numbers and all that, I saw the chat talking about this, and you mentioned the chat. I mean, right now, there's 554 people watching. We have 355 likes. And if you guys want to play the game tonight, I mean, you're going to have to get the 500. I mean, I know sometimes I guess you guys just don't want to play it, but I get it.
Danny gaslighting them again. Well, while we give them a chance to, let's go over a couple things to close out the Cup race weekend, and then we can quickly go, I think, through the other 2 races. TV ratings wise, there was a 1.9 rating for this race, up 7% from last year, and a little over 3.6 million viewers combined, up 6% over last year, with a peak at over 4.2 million at the finish. The largest overall viewership of this race in the last 3 years, I believe since 2021. There was a little data as well from Michigan, 2.111 million viewers on the Sunday portion, and about almost exactly a million less the next day on Monday. It's not really too much you can compare it with just because of being cut off at the time it was. But I will say, I do think that a big reason that we saw an increase in viewership this week was the fact that most of us, unless you were watching, I believe, on Peacock, were able to see this commercial free. Well, full screen commercial free, which is a huge improvement.
If someone's just flipping through the channels and we could be on commercials, they are seeing, hey, there's racing happening there. Let's watch this for a minute.
Yeah. And I can't wait for Atlanta and Talladega now. And I'm just saying, Fox, guys, if you're able to, Daytona 500 doing that massively would improve the experience for all of us at home.
I will say this. This is not a new thing for these races to be flooded with commercial breaks. I did a race watch along last week to the 2006 Pepsi 400. And as it got towards the end, the first half was going pretty good. For the most part, saw most of it. Then since this was cut with all the commercial breaks took out of it, we'd be like 60 to go to commercial, come back, 40 something to go, 30 to go. And then all of a sudden it was like 20 to go in no time. It's like, dang. And like there'd be times when they just show it for like a minute and then go to commercial break. So
that's
this
the
is
problem.
nothing new.
That's the problem. That's the problem, though. We're in a dinosaur thing, but we talked about that so much. We'll talk about it when Fox comes back next year. Really quick, let's go through the poll. I asked what people thought of the Coke Zero Sugar 400. It was over 15,000 of you guys voted on it. 69 nice said great to 23 good. So 92% of voters said that this was a positive race. 5% average, 1% below average. 3% net negativity on that. And you know what? I actually looked ahead and made sure that I could just read the comments because I knew we were going to have a long show tonight and I knew we'd have to get on to getting on. So I'm going to read 7 comments that I got at various points of the like 500 or so we got, and then the 3 gutter comments. First one from Raphael says, Jeff, your little boy has done it. Day 1 on the job, and Lee had one of the best calls ever. I will say that was a really damn good call, and I think he did a really good job overall in this race. So agreement on that one. A couple others. So Eric Hoffman here said, we got a Harrison Burton win before GTA 6.
That's actually kind of wild.
Another one here, I think is a Law Pug, I think it was, said, as a KB fan, I went from euphoria about finally getting a win to utter dejection in the span of 15 seconds. I hate 2024. Again, you're just feeling the pain that Dale Jr. fans felt in 09 and 2010. It just embrace the suck. Tristan here says, I love how the race finished clean and under green. Took a little winding road to get there, but yes. Bud said, having cheered for Jeff Burton and now cheering for Harrison Burton, I feel like I have come full circle as a fan. That is pretty cool. Let's see. Lenny, I think it is, says, such a pleasure to attend this race. And Kitty says, can we just skip to the round of 16? Or can we just skip the round of 16 this year? We all know who's getting booted out. What a year of Mickey Mouse winners. That was not in the gutter, by the way. These are the gutter comments. And I will get to the first comment in a moment. I'm just saving that one for last since I have all of them at the ready. I know some people in the chat are like, where's the first one? We'll get there. Weird guy with pepper something. I don't know. If you're complaining about this race, just go find another sport. Wood Brothers winning. Great racing. A flip. Multiple big ones. And a clean finish. I don't know why that was in the gutter. Mike says F1 is better than NASCAR, wants to save the team's money. How many cars crash because they're running together? That's not racing. I understand why that one was in the gutter. And Top Cuber said didn't watch, unfortunately, and for that got banned to the Shadow Realm. And the first comment that I'm saving for last, because why the hell not? And I'll ask you guys first. It's from Isaac. Is it positive, negative, meme, or a mixture of any of those?
It's a meme.
Meme.
Isaac says, first off, so how's the commercial-free racing? Oh, I'm sorry. What commercial-free racing? I was forced to watch this on Peacock with full-screen commercials because my TV network thought it'd be more important to show an NFL preseason game with the Browns than a NASCAR race at Daytona. And people wonder why I will never watch another NFL game again, not even the Super Bowl. F off, a-holes. I think he's a little angry. I don't blame him.
Definitely not no meme.
That'll do it for the cup side of it. Before we get to the super chat stage break, guys, I do want to quickly skim over the Xfinity race. Ryan Truex again wins. And I'm in the camp, like, one, I think he deserves a full-time ride, but two, like, can someone just give it to him?
Last year, honestly.
I just wish someone would give it to him. Like, he's very much like his brother is a late bloomer in his career, at least at this point with how he's been running. I just want to see the guy get a chance.
It's kind of weird how his career has gone. He was getting legit shots of Michael Waltrip racing back in 2010, I think. It was like him and Trevor Bayne were like getting starts with him in the lower series, and just all of a sudden, poof, career just kind of fizzled out, did whatever, and then all of a sudden, bam, here I am, I'm winning.
It did suck, though, that he's not gotten that chance, but it was awesome that he got the win. It was a little bit of a wreck fest, but I'm not expecting anything different from Xfinity. I'll say, while the race itself didn't have as much to talk about, the way the truck race ended was pretty damn fun and funny. Lane Riggs, not Scott, as was said on the TV broadcast at one point, Lane Riggs won and then immediately dislocated his shoulder. I don't. What do I add to that? If you guys have anything to add to that, go for it. I just thought it was pretty damn fun. Like that's one of those moments you're watching. You're like, only in NASCAR could the guy who just won this race, his first race, looked like the best guy out there for the second half of it, and son of a gun just popped his shoulder out.
Sucks.
Oh, he popped it back in.
Yeah,
He should be a trackhouse driver. He's already got his signature celebration. He fits right in. It's way better than the pinata. I'd love to see a guy pop his shoulder out.
What would you rather do? Pop your shoulder out after a win, or throw up like Noah Gragson?
That's bad, but so funny.
I'll just finish second.
Hey, Sheldon Creed.
I'll pop my shoulder out. I've had to have mine pop back in before during like football games and stuff. It's not that bad. It ain't like he really hurt himself. It was just funny. The big news that actually came out, not during the broadcast, but actually right before, is that local media confirmed that it is the last NASCAR race, at least for a while, at the Milwaukee Mile. I know that a good amount of the social media blame went to NASCAR and to the local government and fair board and everything in Milwaukee. Though at first some of the reporting was a little more, before it conveniently got edited, was more about management of the event as well. I do think, though, that IndyCar being on Big Fox and being that same weekend, I have a feeling that did have a bit to do with it. But I think it was a mixture of many things. I don't think one thing in particular would completely axe it off the schedule. I'll just say that much. But what do you think? We're going to get a race back there eventually, or nah?
No, I think it was a fun experiment, but I don't think, especially for just the truck series, this is not the market for it. If we're going to go up that direction with any series, I would much rather take the trucks to Road America for a one-off, just to get Road America, having something NASCAR related. It's close enough to that market.
It's so damn fun. I love going to Road America.
Has trucks ran Road America?
I know Xfinity has. I don't know if truck.
That'd be fun, actually. Let's take the truck series to Road America. Let's do it.
No, do you really want the truck series to go to Road America? Because
Yes,
I can tell you how that's
anything
going to
at Road
go
America.
right now. Say what?
I want anything to go to Road America, so yes.
I don't know if you want the trucks to go to Road America, because we may have a parking lot in turn one if that happens. But that's your call.
I mean, I
They
park
ran
there
truck
anyway
racing
when I go.
before at road courses. They can do it.
There's going to be 5 or 6 of them out there with you, Jarrett. So they'll join.
I just think, too, that especially if you get it on its own standalone weekend or something at one point, or you do kind of like what you did last year, and A.J. Allmendinger just abandoned his cup bid for the playoffs at Richmond for a weekend. I do think you'd still get a good amount of good drivers out there if it were a truck race or an Xfinity race. I do think those fans were insane. Being out there when there was like that first year when there was like 120, 130,000 people there, like it was insane. And to be fair, the TV numbers backed it up the first year, and then they put it on USA with Cup, and Xfinity really didn't get much traction advertising out there, and it kind of went downhill. But that is definitely one where you will just get people who are a fan of the track to watch. So like business-wise, if you can just market it right and get a good enough package out there, or maybe good enough drivers, preferably ones that aren't 6 seconds off the pace at the start of the race, you could, I think, have something really good on your hands. But I do agree that I think the truck series at least would be a bit of a wreck fest But the Truck Series does need more road courses too, which they, based on the rumors, might be getting some. Just saying. But I think that's going to cover it for the Daytona Milwaukee double weekend. Let's really quick for a couple minutes here go to our first Super Chat stage break. I want to thank everybody who came on out. And by the way, you're only 90 away. Get to it. We can get there. I'm going to start, though, right now. First one from Carl for the 10 here says, y'all forget the day when Talladega was race 34 of 36 through the majority of the 2000s, and with the next gen, the best of the best usually win super speedways. Look up every winner from Atlanta 2022 on. I will debate this a little bit because actually for my video today, I did a little research on it just to be sure. Dega never had a race after race 31 until 2009 in the modern era of NASCAR. It had 2 races as race 33, and then since then has been race 32 or 31. It has never, outside of 09 and 2010, been late enough in the season to even be in the round of 8. So no, it has not been race 34 ever until next year in the modern era. But at the same time, I don't want to put a bunch of desperate guys for the championship round at a super speedway with Martinsville only to be after. It's just too late in the season. We'll talk about that in a bit. Schedule talk in a bit. Alex for the 5 here says, which company which has never been in NASCAR would you like to see as a sponsor? For me, even though it's out of business, it would have been TWA. I mean, my dad brought it up because of the color scheme. Killian's beer would be really good because that maroon color scheme. I'd love to see a maroon car out there. What about you guys?
Any company be a sponsor?
What company?
Just be any company be a sponsor?
Yeah.
Honestly, because I love their color scheme on their trains. Burlington Northern Santa Fe, they have orange, black, and yellow. That'd be a cool car.
What do you think, Grant?
I'm from Nebraska. I live in the cornfields, so let's get John Deere back on the car.
Yes, let's do it. Bailey for the 5 says, no way Ford fumbled Zane twice, right? Harvick is saying Zane Smith may not be the lead guy for the 34, and it's very interesting. We'll talk about Zane Smith in a little bit. We got silly season talk. We got a lot of talk. Dominion 42 for the 10 here says, we'll be back at Darlington this weekend. Turns out removing the grass on the Daytona backstretch was a good idea. Otherwise, we literally have gotten Priest 2.0. This season has been pure chaos. That was one thing. If Harrison didn't win, the only thing I'd remember from Jeff Burton that whole weekend was, there's no grass there. It's asphalt now. It's like, I told my chat, I'm like, have a drinking game every time Jeff Burton brings up either grass or asphalt during this race. Like, you won't make it to the end. Spencer, for the 38-month member chat, says, Jeff, your little boy has done it. That was a great call. I love having Lee Diffie on the call.
Circumstances were much sadder, but having Jeff Burton be up there for Harrison Burton's first win is on par with DW calling Mikey's first win. Everything outside of what else happened.
I wish I would have just let him run loose with it. Just like start being the soccer dad, you know?
I did see a great picture. I think maybe it was Jeff Gluck or someone else in the media center posted it, where he was just in there just listening to every bit of the post race interview, just because it looked like he just wanted to take it all in.
I don't blame him. I do not blame him. SW for the 2 says, Diffie's race finish call is a massive W. And Jeff nearly hitting him in the back of the head too. He was on it. 3 more here. Milton for the 2 says, this is a question. Says, Auto Racing Analytics, what do NDOs stand for?
NDOs is non-drafting ovals. And if you want to know what any of the stats mean, go to autoracinganalytics.com, go to the 2023 Cup stats on the sidebar, and just scroll down to the bottom, and all the abbreviations should be down there.
There you go. Answered your question. Pob Bakris for the 5 says, random useless stat in the 2011 Daytona 500, the 21 car won after the 6 car got a late race restart violation. The same thing happened this weekend.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Good call. And then last one right here from Fred Dog in 81 for the 10 says, no offense to Diffie, but a bit of a forgotten addition to NBC was JJ on commentary. How do you think he did? I thought he was okay, a little boring at times, but he nailed calling that last caution. They just need to turn his mic up. Like I was really interested in what he had to say, but I couldn't hear him because NBC didn't get the mic right, which is ironic probably for people hearing me and like us on the show say that when we're like always like, oh crap, we got to change it a little every week. But I didn't mind about that. I've always thought he's pretty good when he goes up into the booth. But we're gonna get the rest of the super chats at the end of the show, guys. I'm actually driving back up north to Illinois to visit my family this week, and there's only one little problem, is that there's going to be a lot of storms and lightning, like the lightning round. There actually is. There's supposed to be
before I logged on here, I saw Ryan Hall was live, and I was like, oh, there's the storms up there in the Midwest now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be there like at the tail end of the tornado outbreak.
Pretty good chance of thunderstorms for me this weekend at Tennessee Volunteers opening football game of the year.
Damn, we're all gonna get hit. Really quick, let's just roll through this lightning round really quick. First off, it's linked down in the description below. NWP's the main channel that we'll just re-upload all these on as well as maybe some possible specials this year, next year, whatever. Just saying, you got ideas, let us know over there. We have a community tab with comments. Couple other things here. Daytona was added to Fortnite for anyone who would want to play. Hendrick is filing a lawsuit against Hooters for an unpaid sponsor dollars issue.
I hate to see that one go down like that, because I'm like, I was hoping to just be like peaceful, sorry Hooters, couldn't work out, it's okay, we got Coke, we got some chickens, will be okay. And now it's like a tainted sponsor now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I just think I'm just gonna miss the Hooters girls. Sorry, people want me to be honest.
I don't, after my experience in Daytona.
I mean, they're not hired for their serving. Austin Dillon and RCR had their final appeal denied this week. On the penalty side of things, the 27, 28, and 45 teams were and drivers were fined 20 driver and owner points, 5 playoff points, and the crew chiefs were fined $25,000 for a rear bumper infraction. I am in no way intelligent enough to say exactly correctly what happened, but Bozy on Twitter put out a really good thread with all of it. I would recommend checking his stuff out. I don't know if he has it on Threads, but I think he's on Instagram too with that kind of stuff. So he's much better at that than yours truly. Last few things here. NASCAR is actually hiring producers for Fast, a 24/7 new TV channel strictly for NASCAR. I'm assuming that a lot of it's just going to be like replaying races and stuff, but still,
I have a feeling we'll see a lot of replayed races. I also have a feeling, you remember, I think it was earlier this year, NASCAR made a huge acquisition of a guy who had done a lot for the ESPN 30 for 30s. I feel like we're going to see a ton of content being made for that. Yeah. And contrary to what Denny Delivers said on Twitter, no, we have not been approached to be a part of this right now.
Maybe one day. Of course, probably comments like I make at least 2 or 3 times an episode probably would not help with that. And the last bit, next week we will be on the Tall Man's channel. Eric will be back and hosting September 4th, Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you miss Eric and you just can't stand not seeing him for another week and he's not on his channel already, be sure to be over there. I promise we will get the Tall Man back. We'll for sure get the Tall Man back if we get 64 more likes. So while we finish off the lightning round right here, guys, we got a lot to go over. And unfortunately, we don't have all the time in the world. So let's jump on into the headlines for this week, starting off with a pretty darn big one. Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic has a great fascination, like many of us, with the next year's schedule, whenever that is. And he's done a pretty great job every year of finding out what the schedule is, a day, a week sometimes before it's released. We had the news of Mexico City getting a race, and we all kind of, as the year went on, kind of figured, yep, this is what's holding it up for the most part. Well, guys, I have a mostly correct schedule that at NASCAR Latino had put out a day or two early, and it's only got one thing wrong with it, so I have a feeling that it was just figuring out what date the Mexico race would be on. We're going to pop it on screen and completely block out most of us. Well, now I'll just have one eye blocked out. I'm like Zuko right now. Might be a little more difficult to read. This is the best picture we had of it. The only difference on screen right now from the actual schedule is you just got to flip Michigan and Mexico. That's it. This is your schedule for next year. I know NASCAR is doing a big hubba-blue kind of thing for it. Tomorrow,
Literally no reason whatsoever.
No, I mean at that point, but there might be some good stuff in the lower tiers. It's funny because like us two on the top can be for the most part seen. If I just like move here, I'm completely seen. And then there's this Danny. He's just a talking 12.
Hi, do you see me over here finally? Hello.
I'll get it out of your face soon. I just wanted to put it on screen for a moment so that everyone can see it before we talk about it. That way I'm not having to constantly just like put it in front of you the whole time. So let's go and do the biggest changes. There's some of them that have been announced, so we can kind of skim through those. Bowman Gray is the Clash. That one was announced February 2nd. From the looks of it, it'll be, again, a week break for the Super Bowl. Do we have anything to add for the Madhouse? Or does the Madhouse just speak for itself?
I will just say, we're not getting the shenanigans that you see from all these viral clips from Bowman Gray. They're not going to act like these are the top NASCAR drivers that we have. There might get some tempers, but we're not going to see Kyle Larson get mad at Denny Hamlin and just bam in the middle of the grass. That's not going to happen.
I think this is the wrong decision, personally. I don't know why we're not in an international stadium when we've proven that we could do it, but that's my thoughts.
I think it's an olive branch to a lot of the industry of like, hey, I know it's not the greatest thing, and I think they're already for 2026 talking to, I believe, Sao Paulo, Brazil, about having the Clash there. I think this is more just a, hey, you just have to go out there really quick. You'll be able to sleep in your bed the night before and the night after, and we're just going to get this out of the way for a year. It'll shut people up. For a year, people will shut up about, you don't add any short tracks or anything. I think that's the whole mentality. I don't think this is a long-term stay. I think this is just like a novelty item for a little bit. Now, first two races, Daytona, Atlanta, stayed the same, and Chris Myers actually was the one who leaked this out. It goes for race 3 on, it goes Coda, Las Vegas, Coda, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Homestead, all in a row with each other.
I've seen several people talking about Homestead being moved up so early could be an attempt to get them out of the way so they can get a lot of renovations done to hopefully get a later date the next year.
I think that's what it is, especially after that city council meeting for Homestead came out and how they were like, the city was putting money into the track too, like, and putting a huge bid in for the finale. I think that's what it is. And I'm sorry, Homestead needs a huge renovation. That place was run down when we went in 2019.
If they get the finale back, I kind of want to go back again. I don't want to go back unless they have the finale personally.
That's where I'm at with it. And I know, like, I don't
really have a desire to go to Phoenix as a finale either. I just don't.
Well, I know a couple people who like live in Florida and they're like around Miami's area, and they're like, yeah, it's just another race, and at that, it's like no one around here cares unless it's the finale. And we see it in the attendance numbers, especially. I mean, it's been dreadful the last couple of years, and not to mention, like, since they took out the turn 1 grandstands, like, it just kind of looks ugly. Like, those were my seats, man. They were good. They were good seats. But I do think racing wise, I'm a little worried about Coda, but they can still be pretty crazy there. But other than Phoenix, which is the one I think will not be great, I think racing-wise, the schedule opens up pretty strong for the most part. After
when Martinsville's first race? I'm just curious.
March 30th, right after Homestead.
Gosh, give me a switch between them and Sonoma. Give me a night race in the summer at Martinsville and give me green Sonoma just once. Just please.
What were you gonna say, Grant?
I was to say, I actually really like the changes they made to the first part of the schedule because um, I think that coming off Daytona, trying to keep more fans paying attention, any casuals you may have gotten. I think having Coda third is a good idea because you get done with your drafting track stuff and all of a sudden you remind them that, hey, NASCARs actually do turn right, which seems like I that sounds so cliche, but I think that sometimes people do need to be shown that. And I think Coda puts on a pretty good race. I think we run a better race there than the F1 race personally. So
I think I'd take NASCAR any road course for a better race over F1 though. But I do agree, and viewed geographically, it makes sense too. If you look, like you go Daytona to Atlanta, over to Texas, then up to Phoenix, over to Vegas, and then the way back you go back to Florida, and then into the Virginia, Carolinas, Tennessee area. Like it makes sense, which is why after Martinsville, April 6th, this is one I'm not crazy about, though I get why they did it. Darlington, April 6th instead of Mother's Day weekend now. I'm not crazy about it. I grew up with Darlington being on Mother's Day weekend. It never failed for me that like I would spend the day as a kid making my mom her Mother's Day card, you know, maybe getting some flowers or something, last second things if I had to, but making a card for my mom, watching the race, and then finishing up on that card after the race before I went to bed, make sure I had everything ready for tomorrow. Like that's just how I remember. And I know it's my member berries and all of that, but that's how I remember Darlington. And I just, middle of April, I know it had that beforehand, and that's, 2004 on back. It was pretty much like that. But I feel like they built something really good with the throwback weekend on Mother's Day weekend. Maybe doesn't have to necessarily be the middle of the day Mother's Day itself. It can be that night or the Saturday night before if you want. I don't know, man. I'm not crazy about it. But you guys?
I'm all right with it personally. I got nothing against it.
I don't have anything against it either. It doesn't really matter to me. I personally don't think we should race on Mother's Day, but that's my opinion.
You just want a fan with my mother on that one.
There's not trying to jump ahead, but I just saw a race that's changed its date to a little bit much later in the year, and that's New Hampshire moving to September 21st.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it now. But...
Oh, well, we're chronological, Danny. I don't want to jump around. We're not time travelers yet.
Danny, that's why I'm keeping quiet over here. We got a ways to go.
Okay, well, when we get there, I got something to say.
I want to know what you have to say about Bristol being moved into the middle of April now.
It's still gonna rain, probably.
That's what I thought too. Immediately.
Bring the tires.
They tested them. They tested them at Bristol. I think this summer or last summer, probably last summer.
It'd be fun.
We do have Cup racing off Easter, though the rumor is, I don't think it's a rumor at this point, it's pretty much been confirmed that Rockingham will have Xfinity and trucks that weekend.
At least that's not a far trip from home base in Charlotte, so...
I love how like the stock media members came out and been like, well, the fans can support it unlike last time. And then meanwhile, fans in the replies that were there are showing them like their seats and how everyone was packed in. Like attendance was not the problem with Rockingham with the trucks before. That's just the nice little media narrative that they put forward so that they can shut people up on their radio shows about it. But hey, that's just me. Talladega's after that and its normal weekend. Then Texas moved up a little bit into May. And Kansas Mother's Day weekend. I'll say if there's any track that you did move to that weekend, I'm cool with Kansas, but I also go to Kansas a lot, and I like the racing there. I think it's the best racing in Cup right now. But
now I'll probably have to miss that race. It's such a shame. Why are we racing this weekend?
Well, at least it's only 2 races. It looks like it'll still be trucks and Cup, so it's not like at least you're not missing like Xfinity, the goated series of NASCAR.
Oh, whoa. There's nothing better than a Cup race at Kansas, and I'll stand by that.
I say at this point, but I was just saying like Xfinity is the best series racing-wise consistently. Not at Kansas, but overall. But like I'll be at Kansas this September, so like I'm I'm going to be there. So then we go North Wilkesboro 600. Danny, our home race here, Nashville, June 1st.
I like this. This race has progressively been moved up earlier and earlier and earlier in the year, every year since it's come into effect here. But I like this right after the Coke 600. I think that's a good spot for it.
We need to talk Eric into like the three of us just go up and watch Larson race Indy. Maybe like do a podcast or something that week with us and David Land, and then bring him back down for Nashville week. Maybe they'll have the Fairgrounds Battle at Broadway again, and we'll roll with that.
I don't know if his wife would like him spending a whole week out here in Tennessee, though.
It's tax write-off. It'll help at the end of the year. It pays itself. After that's Michigan. I like Michigan being moved back. I wish it was Father's Day, but again, that's a personal preference for me. My first race I've ever attended was Michigan Father's Day 2006. That's another one I'm kind of in the same boat as Danny with Bristol on. Probably still going to rain. It just sucks. Every year, doesn't matter the date. And then we get to the one that was announced yesterday, Mexico City, in June 15th, Father's Day weekend, Xfinity Cup, and I believe the Mexico Series will be racing as well in that race. What are we thinking? That's the one I think we can really like, the big meat and potatoes one we can talk about here.
Okay, call me uneducated about Mexico, I'm sure, but when I saw Mexico in June, I first thought, oh my gosh, get these guys a water sponsor. But I didn't realize Mexico City was so high up in elevation until people pointed it out to me. So I just didn't know that. So, I mean, I've also heard they might want a water sponsor just because not all the tap water in Mexico is recommended to be drunk. But
I knew somebody was going to make that joke at some point.
Not really a joke. I mean, I've heard people say it's just a legit concern. So.
I know, but it's also like, it's such an internet meme too. I like trying new things with it. I'm not as against it as a lot of people. I know there's some people like, we really lost a Richmond date for Mexico. It's like, was Richmond worth keeping 2 dates for?
We've been saying for the last few years that Richmond doesn't need 2 dates.
I see, Danny, you just said that, and Grant, I'm watching your reactions. They're great.
I love the decision to axe that Richmond date. That's a great idea, because I think we can all appreciate one Richmond race quite a lot if there's only one of them. 2 of them, can't do it. What I just feel like we have too many road courses is my thing. I think we've oversaturated it, and so I don't know what you get rid of. I don't know what you put on a rotation. I wish we could somehow get Road America on a rotation somewhere, because we got too many, but we got too many good choices. I wish there was a good oval in Mexico that we could be going to, because I think if we're going to go international, we should be showing off our best product, which is our oval racing. But let's axe that Spring Phoenix date, and let's get another international race in its slot too. I love kicking Richmond for an international race.
Hey, I'm just saying, I'd be so down. You know, we got our neighbors to the south of us. I think our neighbors to the north of us, Canadian fans, like they might not be as many as American fans just because of population numbers and density and all that. But those Canadian fans, they deserve a date, and
they've been waiting.
Yeah, they deserve it. I mean, Jeff Gordon was on the track for like 15 years of trying to get a track built up there, an oval track at that. Like, they deserve to have a race. I'd be down axing a Phoenix date for that, especially if we're able to build an oval one day.
While that is fair, I don't think we currently have a Canadian full-time driver. We do have a full-time Mexican driver though, so
so we should have a race in Australia. That's what you're saying.
We should have a race in Australia. I'm actually kind of all for that idea.
Bathurst Clash for the Cup Series. That's the new thing.
Honestly, here's a wild hair idea as an exhibition race. It is equally as big out there as it is here in America, but dirt sprint car racing is huge in Australia. And if we want to try NASCAR on dirt again, give me an exhibition race on some Australian dirt track.
I like it. I like that. That's the best. We could do both. We could do them in the. We could go down. Let's make them for points, Danny. Put us in charge.
I don't know
Let's
about
do
that.
this.
I
love it.
I can't wait. We'll start off an Australian race. We'll have like some Australian throat singer in the background being like, whoa, like that. And that's just how we roll into the NASCAR and Fox theme.
Just imagine the evolution of the Clash. In one year, the Clash is an Australian dirt race. That's the Clash.
No, okay, Danny, now I've really cooked something up, all right? Here's what we do. We do the regular season finale at an Australian dirt track, and then we open the playoffs on Mount Panorama. It'd be a blast.
And then the championship race at Daytona. Got it.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. You read my mind. It's perfect.
My tinfoil hat is firmly placed on top of my head. Let's keep rolling through time. Pocono gets moved back a month. That's fine. It's about where it would have been in his first date beforehand. This one was announced a while ago. Atlanta will be the first Saturday night race of the year on June 28th. That also, I believe, is the opening race for Turner's side of the schedule, TNT, which makes sense since I believe they're based in Atlanta.
You said the first Saturday night race, not the first night race period, right?
Yeah, Saturday night race.
Okay. Just making sure that's far too long. That's the first night race, but you said Saturday night.
Yeah, because we got the 600, and I think with the way that Fox has them and all that, I don't know if Fox will be overlapping IndyCar and NASCAR too much. I wouldn't be surprised if like Texas in May is a Sunday night race. Texas brings in good numbers.
I didn't think about that, but you're probably right. They're going to have to find a way to separate those times as much as possible.
Yeah, and Kansas too could be one, especially when, depending on what overlap you have with Indy 500 coverage, no matter what it is. I mean, Fox is pretty much, they've put through their actions that they're putting IndyCar above NASCAR now, at least with putting every IndyCar race on Big Fox. Amazing what will happen if you just sacrifice a little bit of money for viewership standards. But yeah, Atlanta will open that part of it up for the in-season tournament as well. A couple other movements here on the schedule. Sonoma will be moved to the 13th. So they go from all the way over to Sonoma in the middle of July on the West Coast. The very next week, they go all the way over to Dover after that. That's logistical. That's a nightmare logistically.
Side note, is it going to rain in Dover in July?
From everyone I've talked to, and everyone who's been leaving comments, they're like, I'm going to boil alive. I live out here. And I'm like, go down to Tennessee that time of year, or Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you what boiling alive really is. But
right now, I've been boiling alive. I go outside any time after 9 a.m.
It's been hot. It's been like 100 degrees all week here.
Plus the humidity.
And then, you sound like a Midwesterner saying that, Danny.
We got it just as bad here.
Oh, I know. Don't trust me. I know. I'm saying it's like that's a Midwestern thing. We're like, man, he wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't so humid. Getting to the end of the schedule here, the NBC portion of the year. By the way, Brickyard does close off the Turner side of it. So more than likely the Brickyard 400 will be on TNT next year, closing out the regular season or the in-season tournament. Then you get to Iowa opening up August 3rd. I know a lot of people said there's some overlap on that. The Glen the next week. We do have 2 Saturday night races after this to end the regular season. Richmond has been moved to Saturday night, August 16th, and Daytona, August 23rd, to close it on up for the regular season. I don't really see an issue personally on the Richmond side of things. Like, it's going to be one of the least watched races of the year, no matter when they put it. So
I wish Gateway could be a night race. I feel like that'd be a fun night race.
I do too. I mean, we're going into the playoff side of things. So Southern 500 opens up. Gateway's the week after. It's on USA. It was only about 5 years ago that Las Vegas was actually put on a Sunday night against Sunday Night Football, and the ratings went up a good amount, I think, for that race. So if they wanted to, there's no football game that's going to be going on that, at least that matters in St. Louis that weekend.
I'm actually curious though from TV perspective. So this year September 7th would be a Saturday. So I'm just curious if they were experimenting and making that a Saturday night race. College football games on September 7th. See if there's anything big. Oh yeah, there's a few big ones actually. They'd have to compete around Texas, Michigan.
Well, the only Saturday night race would be Bristol. And that's September 13th next year.
Yeah.
And now, Danny, we're at New Hampshire, by the way.
Yeah, I was actually curious when I saw that date. I was like, when do fall colors start in New Hampshire? According to this, from New England Inns and Resorts, their New England fall foliage reports. New Hampshire's White Mountains are also a great choice for leaf viewing in late September and early October. The high altitudes of this northern region makes for an early season foliage peak. So, there's not a great chance that time of year. There is a chance we might get a visual of fall colors around New Hampshire Motor Speedway, which could be very beautiful.
And I believe that's also around the same time they had it before, when, towards the end of New Hampshire being in the playoffs. And if you looked around, it did look pretty good.
If it would be like just literally a week later, I feel like it would just be gorgeous with the aerial views.
Well, the New Hampshire's like, I think the only track in the playoffs. I'm like, I want to move that one out. Like, the rain tires this past year, I think proved that it's like, or wet weather tires, as people get on my ass if I call them rain tires. I think
They
those
should be rain tires. Keep calling them rain tires till we run them in the rain. Gosh darn it!
I was at Coda. We did run them in the rain. It sucked.
I think it was great. I think everybody's crying about nothing. Let them do it. They're the best drivers in the world. Make them prove it to me. Show me that you're the best in the world. Get out there. You got it.
It sucked in person as a fan a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure it was bad. I'm sure it was awful in person, but on TV,
it was an awful disaster. No, it was a fun disaster, I should say. Like, it was fun, but it was awful at the same. It was unique. I'm okay with Gateway being put in the playoffs. We don't need 2 flat ovals. 3, actually, if you include Phoenix, but 2 within 2 weeks of each other, very similar. Gateway, though, has a very diehard base. And Gateway has no NFL allegiance at this point. If anything, St. Louis is pissed at the NFL. And that would help, I think, both at the track and probably in the local market as well. But New Hampshire, I would have been fine keeping it in the summer, personally. We close out with Kansas, the Roval, Vegas. Talladega is the third to last race of the year. Martinsville and Phoenix. I want to bring up, you brought up earlier, like, what road course do we get rid of? Take the Roval off and make it the Charlotte Oval.
Yep, it's about time. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think a good portion, not everyone, but a good portion of NASCAR fans feel the Roval experiment was just that, an experiment, fun while it lasted.
And I was all for it when it happened.
I was too. I think the Roval put on great racing, and I'm kind of gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss what it's supposed to be. But with the next gen car, man, we need to get as many intermediates in as we can, and that's one that we're missing out on. Let's get back there.
I am a Chicagoland truther, man. I went there my whole life.
One last thing on the schedule for me: get Talladega out of the round of 8. What are we doing here? No, absolutely not. That is too much chaos. I'm team chaos sometimes, but that's way too far. We're too close to the championship race that we all know one day probably will happen, which is just a horrifying thought.
Daytona. They're going to make Daytona the championship. I know that everyone thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist on this.
I'm not okay with it, but I know they're going to. It's going to happen.
But I do have a theory to this as to why they put Talladega there, and I don't even think it's necessarily to shake it up, though 2 weeks away from the finale, don't like it. NBC, big NBC, only has 4 races next year. USA is the 10 others for the 14 NBC Sports races. You got to make Daytona an NBC race. That's big. Regular season finale. From there, you have 3 left. Finale has to be. They're going to put Martinsville for sure, more than likely, because of the transfer in. And you got to use Talladega as a big money race. What race would you put on the big channel before Talladega over it? Your options are Vegas, the Roval, Kansas, New Hampshire, Gateway, Bristol on a Saturday night, which is, I would say, be a wasted chance because you're going up against a lot of different things, and it's the lowest watch race of the year when it's usually run. The only one I can think of is Southern 500, and even then, not many people watch. Like, I think that's the only reason they moved it there, is to have 3 NBC races to end the season.
Crazy idea. Take a little bit less money and put one more race on NBC, move Kansas into that slot, move Talladega back 2 week, back, I think 3 weeks, so it's in the middle of the round of 12, where it belongs. Life's good again. Everybody's fine.
Hey, I brought this up before. I would be cool, especially the way they keep moving the finale. Like the finale will be November 2nd next year. The truck finale is Halloween, which is the earliest a finale in NASCAR has been since 2000 with the truck finale in October of that year. I mean, you keep moving it into October. I am completely fine with an ISC track in Kansas being the finale. Best racing in NASCAR. It's right now ubiquitous with winning titles anyway. Like, let's roll with it.
Kansas City's a
It's
halfway
time. Let's
decent
do it.
market to go to for a big championship too.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Chiefs. It's championship culture out there now.
I'm totally not biased. Let's do it right now. I'm in. Switch it tomorrow for this year. Who cares?
I go to Kansas too.
Get over it.
Yeah. I'd definitely take it over Phoenix. I'd be fine with the one Phoenix date being in the spring if we just got rid of that too. But anyway, that is the schedule. Probably went a little longer than many thought. We talked about Mexico happening. The other thing is that street racing is definitely here to stay. Chicago is for sure coming back based on most reports. Almost for sure at this point now that it's been put out there. NASCAR is negotiating with other cities. Right now, San Diego is the leader. Pittsburgh is also up there. The other ones are Cincinnati and Baltimore and some cities in the Pacific Northwest. And the first thing I'm thinking is like, okay, what other cities that have either had or do have AFC football teams are we going to try and go to next? I am all for one in Cincinnati. I've been to Cincinnati a lot. I like their fans. Every time I've went for a Vikings game against the Bengals, their fans have been some of the coolest out there. I haven't just been through Cincinnati other times. I generally really like the people in the area around there. It's a pretty easy city, at least to get in and out of compared to like, traffic wise, I'd say compared to say like a Chicago, which I've been through a lot, even a Milwaukee, a Nashville. I am on the Cincinnati train with that. Plus, it would give us another excuse not to go back to Kentucky.
That's true. My thing is I don't know what road course you're going to get rid of. And I'm concerned they're not going to get rid of a road course. That we're just going to gain another road course and not give up anything for it. And we're just oversaturating the schedule with road courses. I think Chicago has been a huge success, both in its the appeal of the market, but also in actually the racing. I think the tracks turned out to be way better than we thought. But I I don't want to see more of this. I want to appreciate it for what it is and not give up what NASCAR actually is. So like, are we going to give up Chicago and go back to Chicagoland and
It's
try
ready.
and do a different straight race? Like what are we going to do?
I'll say Chicagoland. I won't say it's necessarily ready like right now, but like if Chicagoland were put on the schedule for, like if Chicagoland were announced today to be put on the schedule in 2025 in September, it'd be more than ready to go. Like the track is not in as bad of condition as a lot of naysayers will say it is. People are like, there's a hole in the fence. Like, yeah, they took it out for the motocross race. Like they're having events at the track. Sorry, I'm getting on my Chicagoland trutherism. I would think though, like I don't think the Chicago street course lasts past 26 personally. I just think the city politics and wanting more money would kill it. The city seems to have really adapted and likes it. Sounds like everyone that lives around there really likes it because like they basically get a free view to a pretty awesome race. I saw those. My dad sent me this video around that time of SVG and Kyle Larson in the Xfinity race battling for the lead, and the video was taken like 15 stories up in one of the buildings right next to the racetrack, and I can see the whole thing. Like the scene, it sounds like the people around there really like it. But I think if they're gonna take any race away, it would probably be just to replace that one. I just don't want to have like 4 or 5 street races on top of, they're not going to get rid of Sonoma or Watkins Glen. Marcus Smith doesn't want to get rid of the Roval. Coda, that market's just, I think, too much right now. You can't get rid of either. Like, I don't want to have, I like road course racing, especially done well. I don't want like 9 or 10 on the schedule.
I mean, I will say I think Coda is a world-class facility. I love how close it is to the airport. And the fact that literally this year I flew from Nashville that morning, went to the race, and flew back and was in my bed that night. It is a perfect venue.
I love it. I've been there too. Once, I think once. Yeah, I kind of where'd the comment go? I agree in the chat. Noah Coleman says one street race, make it special. I think that's something to NASCAR that like we got to have special races. We can't just make every race the exact same thing.
I think I've been saying this for a while now. It doesn't need to be the same city over and over again. It needs to be the straight race, because the straight race can happen anywhere. It needs to be something where a city bids on it like a Super Bowl, and you need to have a winning city each year.
I'd be okay. The San Diego one, I think you do need to have that California market. It's just too big to pass up. I'd be okay if the oval they got rid of, with ISC leading the charge on it, was the first Phoenix race. I know that the fans show up for it, but I think more fans would show up in San Diego, at least for year one.
If you are at a championship race, you should not have a race for teams to be prepared when they get there the next time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Regardless, the person who's probably going to be the favorite for any of those races, since it'll be a road course and might even rain, is Shane Van Gisbergen, which leads us to our next topic here. This one came out of left field for a very specific reason, as well. SVG's going to Cup in a third Trackhouse car. We all knew that was coming. Running for Rookie of the Year, going to replace Zane Smith, which we'll talk about in a moment. To which Justin Marks said that like it was just an easy, paraphrasing, it was a no-brainer, easy decision, which I'm not crazy about because it just seems kind of between him, that and then also Zane Smith not kind of seeming good with this. Just doesn't seem the greatest. A little boiling bad blood. But the big thing that caught a lot of eyes is this number. 88. The 88
Alex
car.
Bowman's number? Wow.
Alex Bowman. I thought we were talking about late career Ricky Rudd. The 88 is back, being run by Trackhouse. By the way, SVG will be running this weekend at Darlington, as well as Atlanta, the Glen, Dega, Vegas, and Martinsville. I think that especially with the way that it's rolling out, looking like there's going to be 5 road courses in the regular season, SVG is going to be a playoff guy next year.
He stands a strong chance for sure.
He won the Xfinity race, and he was by far, or what? It didn't win the Xfinity. Yeah, won the Xfinity race at Chicago. Ran great at Coda. I don't see why he wouldn't do that in Cup. I don't see why he wouldn't run up front at Mexico or Sonoma, which he won, or Watkins Glen. Like I don't see any reason. Like he could get taken out. Somebody could beat him, like a Larson or an Elliott or Reddick, whoever. There's no way he doesn't get a win. No way.
I'm actually very disappointed in Trackhouse for not getting SVG into Cup this year.
Really?
Because here's my why. Because if I were them, how I would have wanted SVG to adapt to oval racing is I would have wanted to try to see if he could somehow run a partial Cars Tour schedule while running Cup, which would have been a huge stretch. But I think it would have been worth doing because I think that style of racing would teach you the oval stuff pretty aggressively. And the Xfinity and the Cup car have so little in common anyway. You may as well stick him in the Cup car that's more similar to the supercar he's used to. And if there was ever a year for Shane to go to the round of 8, this would have been it. You got Atlanta and the Glen in the first round, and then you got Dega and the Roval in the second round. Like, he's going to win. You think he'd win one of the Glen and the Roval, and then you hope to get lucky in the other one. Like, there was a road there somewhere.
I'd say
but
too.
His outstanding metrics look pretty good in the Xfinity series. I've been very impressed with Shane this year.
I think that it's just keeping him in Xfinity and having him hone that craft against maybe a little bit, not a little bit, a lesser competition base rather than throwing him in the deep end. We've seen, though, throwing drivers in the deep end that are new to this craft can be a very strenuous, kind of growing rate, I guess. The one everyone will point to is Danica Patrick being forced up when she showed actual promise at different points in the Xfinity series, and then they forced her up to Cup quick, or maybe just money talked. But even guys, while he had a good year, Montoya, Marcus Ambrose, others like that, who probably could have benefited from having a slower run up. I think he'll. I would not be surprised if he sneaks into like the round of 12 next year, and with the Roval there, and then Talladega the next round. Who knows? Like it's a very long shot, but he'll be in the playoffs.
I want to say this in regards to something Crystal John said in the chat. They said, in my opinion, SVG winning Chicago last year ruined Project 91. Any all interest in getting other drivers became non-existent after that. I kind of agree with that because it seemed like it was just supposed to be something for fun to try, other guys, and they accidentally found their next franchise project, and that being SVG. And likewise, I feel like this year has been kind of a letdown. We have seen SVG in the Cup Series because he has been in Kaulig equipment versus trackhouse equipment. I feel like trackhouse equipment is definitely better than Kaulig Cup equipment. We haven't seen the best results from him this year. So I definitely think next year he has a stronger chance to win in trackhouse equipment versus Kaulig equipment this year.
Well, and they did. I think Justin Marks did say Project 91 should be back for next year, not knowing the capacity of it just yet. But the other side of all of this is Zane Smith. Zane Smith has been released from his contract.
He was just the backup, wasn't he, all along? It feels that way.
What do you think,
Grant? He was in a Spire car and not a Trackhouse car.
I just wanted to wrap up one last thing on Van Gisbergen. As far as his Xfinity year goes this year, he's been faster than his teammate Josh Williams across the whole season, a man who's been racing ovals his whole life. So he'll be fine in Cup. It won't be flawless, but it's not going to be a train wreck.
Now on the Zane Smith.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. On the Zane Smith road here. So it sounds like from what Harvick was saying, he's not the favorite for the 34 at front row, which is what a lot of people were kind of wondering. So where does Zane go at this point? What openings at the end are still there for old Zane?
Not even like he can go back to the Truck Series because now Lane Riggs has just won his first race.
I don't know if there's a Spire. Is there going to be a Spire truck opening up? I'm not sure about that.
I mean, I know there's like the rotating one because like Kyle Busch would be in a few races, like Connor Zilich would. So like maybe on that end of it,
it's difficult. The 11 with Kaulig Racing and Xfinity Series. I don't know if Josh Williams is going to return to that.
Some are saying 2311.
I think there's no seats available at 2311.
Yeah,
as far as I know. There might be seats at Kaulig, but you have to buy those. So I don't know where he's going to get that from.
I think he'd get enough for Kaulig personally.
Maybe. I mean, you never know. I just don't know what's left. And I think he's far too talented for the whole industry to just kind of let him walk away over nothing, seemingly.
I don't want to see him turn into a James Busher, and that could almost be what he turns into, win a Truck Series championship and just poof. But I don't think he's going to do that either.
And I don't think that'll happen. There had to be something behind the scenes that happened. Like the way it seems weird how this all kind of, like, I get using him as the backup, but it feels weird how it all kind of like leveled out at this point. I know the chat's throwing a lot of different options out there. I still, even if he's not the front runner, I still wouldn't be surprised if he went back to front row. I still wouldn't. Unless
I almost wonder if he wasn't the backup. Like, was the plan to not keep Suarez, Like was that Zane's seat all along?
Maybe, but I think keeping Suarez's seat, that seat open at least for now, is just for down the line when they get Connor Zilich up there.
Yeah, that's.
I
thought Shane's seat was going to become Zilich's. Is what I thought all along.
They have such an embarrassment of riches. They really do. I mean, like, they have all the options they could ever want.
Yeah.
He could end up in a 7, which would be funny. Zane Smith and Carson Hocevar being teammates then. But I don't know. I guess
Well,
because some people said, what about RFK? Well, it seems like if they get the third charter with Kroger, that's likely Ryan Preece who they're looking at from what we last heard. Some people are saying Rick Ware Racing. Well, kind of since he's reinstated, kind of back. They got Justin Haley, and I would think maybe they'd want to put Cody Ware back to racing.
Or do they? Or do they have Justin Haley? Because if they don't, suddenly that becomes a pretty solid option, I'd say.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna be difficult, but I think we're gonna probably find out some stuff soon. Like I don't see this being one of those things that goes on for a few months with radio silence. So I guess we'll see. But we got one other big story before we get to the quick prediction segment. And a random driver. This was a major week for stuff coming out here. And that's the only reason why a major penalty like Denny Hamlin got is the backup story of everything.
Okay, sorry, can I pause? I realize I need to address this. I'm stupid. Carson Hocevar and Zane Smith are already teammates. I'm just used to Zane Smith being in the Trackhouse program, but it's also a Spire car. Sorry.
It's all good, Danny.
Earlier.
It's a long night. It's a marathon. And you can trip a little in a marathon. You just got to make it to the finish. Let's talk about really quick the major penalty that has become an afterthought of Denny Hamlin getting penalized. TRD messed up. Sounds like they got his Bristol winning engine, tore it down before NASCAR could inspect it afterwards. They self-reported it because it would have popped up in the paperwork down the line. The details of the penalty are this: 75 driver and owner points gone, 10 playoff points gone, Chris Gabehart's wallet gone, $100,000 fine. I'll say this is a major hit to Denny Hamlin possibly winning his first title. I know a lot of people be like, who cares? He's fast. He'll get over it. It's like, man, 10 points. Ask Denny Hamlin the difference of what 10 points could make the last couple of years in the round of 8.
You get 3 winners in the round of 8 that aren't you, and you're fighting you're one of 5 guys fighting for that last spot. That goes a long way real fast.
Yes.
For those of you who are familiar with auto racing analytics, you know about the auto racing analytics algorithm that predicts the playoffs, that predicts the full season based on the metrics that I have. This penalty, this hurts Denny a lot in that algorithm because he's probably out around 20-ish playoff points when it's all said and done, something like that. That's pretty brutal. And I would say go follow the Twitter for when I post that algorithm's results. But it has Denny out in the round of 12 after this. So that's a big penalty hurt. You can't have that.
And you said it's because super speedway wise, it's not been pretty for him this year.
He's been rough on super speedways, and we know that he hasn't been spectacular on road courses. If you look at the round of 12, the points that he's going to have, he needs to actually finish a speedway race at Talladega, or he needs to win Kansas. And
that could happen.
If he does continue to crash at Talladega like he has all season long, and if he doesn't put together a monster day at Kansas, we could see his elimination. I don't know if I buy the algorithm on that, but it's definitely showing some weakness in the 11 team.
Real quick, I don't want to go too much over it, but this was from Adam Stern 15 minutes ago that it sounds like NASCAR is already working, that the San Diego thing isn't just a rumor, it's that they're already working on the date for 2026 with San Diego. So it sounds like San Diego is going to happen unless something changes. This was 15 minutes ago from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal.
If that does go down, I got a producer friend of mine I work with from San Diego, so I might have to definitely take him to his first NASCAR race.
My dad's been wanting to go back to San Diego because he used to live out there for a while, so he'll probably be like, "Hey, come on, we can skip Kansas for a year. We can go to San Diego." Figure I'd bring that up because some people have been tagging me on Twitter about it, and I didn't want to ignore y'all. But yeah, I mean the regular season points too. I mean, he was in contention. Granted, I think a bit of a long shot, if I remember right, for the regular season title, but he's now like 6th, 7th in the board? 8th. Holy Jesus.
It's done. Yeah,
so yeah,
it's over.
He might gain a spot or two, but instead of getting like 7, 8 playoff points from points position, he's getting 3 or 4. Like that's
Yeah, so he's not even getting 3 or 4. He's probably getting 1 or 2. Like that's pretty bad.
oof.
It's
Oof.
it yeah. So he's out probably 17 points in this penalty, and that's a
Jeez.
big deal.
Yeah,
That's
that
a full mistake right there.
yeah. And the thing is, the sad part on his part is that it has nothing to do with the 11 team. The 11 team didn't do anything wrong from the reports of it. It was like,
Congratulations, you found another way to lose a championship. Well done.
and it wasn't, and he didn't even do
Pretty
it.
impressive. I know.
Again, the purple guy. It's the Vikings of NASCAR. Find a way to lose. Be good enough to be there, not good enough to get above, even if it's not your fault. Oh my God. Geez, that gets us through the major stories really quick. Let's get to the prediction segment, random driver, and then we can get our predictions for the weekend done. So Mr. Estep is not here right now, but he is in his in his tardiness and absence, sent me his picks for this weekend. I'm just going to read through all 3 of them so we don't overlap. But before then, let's get to the accountability session. So these predictions we'll make, we'll go around the room in an order, one at a time. Hosts and guests make up to 3 NASCAR motorsports show related predictions. We'll keep track each week of the host ones for right and wrong, and just try and keep them concise. For me, it was a pretty good week. I said Ford would have the most laps led in the Coke Zero Sugar 400. They most certainly did. It was like all, I think, but 30. I said there would be a first-time winner in any of the top 3 series by Phoenix. It happened twice this weekend. I did not think I'd get it this quick. I did do this one early in the season is wrong. I said there would be 5 or less road courses on the Cup Series 2025 schedule. That is not the case. There will be 6, which is good for Eric because that was the only prediction he got right this week. He said there'd be 6 exactly road courses on next year's schedule. There were. Unfortunately, he said there'd be a 1-2 finish from Ford at Daytona. There was not. He said Elton Sawyer would do a post-race media scrum after the Cup race at Daytona for some kind of controversy. Doesn't look like that happened, though if that did happen, I can change it. And he said a Toyota would lead the most laps at Daytona for the Cup race. That did not happen either. Danny, pretty good week for you. 2 for 2, or 2 for 4, I should say. You said someone outside the playoff cut line would win their way into the 2024 Cup Series playoffs. You said this before this weekend. It was Harrison Burton. And you said Michael Waltrip would say Daniel Dye's name 8 or more times in Milwaukee. Danny with the layup, because he had his prediction right by the end of the second stage. I told you, man, you could have done double digits and you still would have won. You did say there would not be a flip at Daytona. We were about to have Flipgate until Josh Berry went full flipper.
Yep.
You also said each RCR car would lead a lap in the Cup race, including Austin Hill. I think only Kyle Busch was the only RCR car that led a lap. So for prediction percentage, I am now still the leader at 42.59%. Eric at a clean third. Danny, you're catching up to Eric at 31.03%, back in the 30s on this one. I will read off Eric's predictions here. That way none of us overlap on it. And then from there, Grant will have you lead off, then me, then Danny, and we'll just go around the room 3 times. So he said Darlington would be the 5th straight Cup race to go into overtime. Said someone currently in the playoffs, top 16 at the moment, would win at Darlington this weekend. And he said Zane Smith would not race full-time in Cup next year. So those are 3 predictions Eric has off the board. I will keep track of those. Grant, what is your first prediction? Can be this week.
Well, the first
season.
thing I'm going to say is you all can go back and fact check it. The first time I was on this show would have been earlier this year after Kansas. Mm-hmm. I said that either Kyle Busch or Joey Logano would miss the playoffs, and we are 1 race away from that coming true.
I predicted it right after.
Go ahead and check that. But the other thing was I will say it is in fact not Denny Hamlin's year. That is my first prediction. He is not getting it done this time around.
When is it ever his year?
It's not this one. I don't know if it ever will be, but this isn't it.
For me, I got mine here. I will say that by the end of the year, it could be tonight, could be the finale for all we know. A guest will get a random driver of the week correct. I simply am doing this just because Eric said the opposite, and, well, guessing the opposite of Eric has worked before for me.
My first prediction of the week, Michael McDowell will lead over 10 laps at Watkins Glen.
McDowell supremacy.
Okay. My second prediction is that within the next 3 years, RCR will no longer be a key partner team. And I have some thoughts on why that's the case, but we do not have time to discuss that tonight.
That's simple enough for me.
I'll make this prediction. Long-term one. I'll probably get it wrong based on this, the universe saying F you. Unless for like obvious caveats, like horrible thing, like death in the family, or good thing, like I don't know, like down the road, like if I, there's something I have to be at, I don't know, like kid being born one day, whatever. I will not miss an episode of this show through the 10th season. Or if the show ends by then, that could be wrong for that reason, but I don't think I will be. I have been on every single show in these 8 seasons or 7 seasons, whatever one we're on at this point. I will be on through to the double digits, baby. I'm not effing leaving.
We're gonna get a message one day. I'm having internet issues. Oh no.
I'm like looking at the universe like, strike me down. Danny, what's your next one?
I'm going to suck up to Grant here a little bit. At least one of the legacy cars will finish top 10 at Darlington.
I hope you're right. I hope so. My final prediction, and this is based on that there's never been a driver in the next gen era to do this so far. I think Tyler Reddick is going to win at least 3 playoff races this year.
Ooh, I like that one. I like it. I'll make my final one now. I wrote this down before Eric sent some, so I'm not purposely doing it to be the opposite. I do not think the Cup race this weekend will have an overtime. I think we're breaking it this weekend. Darlington has had them before, but they've also had long green runs to finish off the Southern 500. And I think that we'll have at least a decently good size. Off the record, I'd say at least, 10 to 15 laps. But I think that we won't have a green-white checker overtime finish this weekend in the Southern 500.
I'm more prepared for this one to be wrong than right. And personally, I hope that it's wrong. But it's funny, we talked about this earlier on the show just for a little bit. But I'm saying that we will go 3 weeks in a row of a car flipping in NASCAR. It might just be a little rollover, but I think there will be another car flip.
Bold, Danny. Bold.
We have seen crazier flips happen in NASCAR, though.
We have. But I believe that
look back to the 46 car at Rockingham in that one year.
That's right. But I believe that's all of us have our 3 predictions in, which means we have one more segment before we get to the final one. I swear this has been the biggest news week in a long, long ass time. Random driver of the week. There you go. Random driver of the week. Woo, baby. All right. So for that, guys, turn your chats off if you have the chat up. No cheating.
Goodbye, chat.
Currently,
this is my chance to catch up to Eric. He's not here.
Yeah, Eric has the lead 10-9 over Danny. I got last week's right with Bill Rexford. Eric has had 3 of the 4 before that right with Lake Speed, Corey Heim, and David Reagan. Danny, you got Quinn Half right. So let's get it on. Let's go. Alrighty. This random driver of the week nearly attempted an Indy 500 Coke 600 double. By the way, three guesses. I should have said that too. You guys have 3 guesses. I won't tell you how many facts there are. Only that
you said nearly attempted the double.
Nearly attempted the double.
Can I just blow a guess right now?
Go for it. You might get it right.
Kyle Busch.
No, you didn't.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
That would have been really damn awesome.
I'm not gonna blow a pick, but I mean, I guess technically I can still say Larson attempted it. Nearly attempted to be like a deal was there and it didn't happen, I guess.
Well, this random driver, there's a lot of social media ones on this one, I'll say that, has 738 LinkedIn followers, 27,000 on Instagram, 5 on Facebook, no active Twitter account.
5 on Facebook.
5,000, I mean.
Oh,
Yeah, my bad.
I was gonna say, how do you have 27,000 on Instagram, 5 Facebook friends? I guess you stay really private there.
This random driver's LinkedIn did say that they were an experienced race car driver, coach, and racing instructor.
I'm gonna go ahead and blow one. Max Pappas.
No. So 1 and 1. Guys are even. 2 guesses apiece left.
He would be a guy that would make a lot of sense to do a double, though. Just to be fair,
That would have made some sense.
This random driver is also driven in IMSA, as well as other open wheel cars, on top of driving in NASCAR. This random driver also raced in the NASCAR Mexico Series. Like keeping an eye on the chat. This random driver's LinkedIn says that they are self-employed.
This guy's pretty active on LinkedIn. What?
yeah.
I find a lot of good facts about past, current, maybe even future drivers on the old LinkedIn.
Weird.
This random driver participated in the 2014 Battle at the Beach in Daytona. Any guesses?
Nope.
This random driver also raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona. It's a very active driver. This random driver's Xfinity debut was in 2014 at Mid-Ohio.
Okay, so we're at a recent driver.
I'll burn a second guess.
Mm-hmm.
How about Connor Daly?
That is not correct.
The Mexico Series one is throwing me off because I'm trying to think of like Hispanic drivers that this could be, but it might not be a Hispanic driver. It might just race in that series.
I kind of think it's going to be that option.
I'm just watching the chat right now. This random driver actually quit their Truck Rookie of the Year bid to go to college for a pre-med degree.
I applaud them, honestly.
This random driver has been tweeted about 7 times by yours truly, 4 times by Danny, and 8 times by Eric.
So I know them.
Yes, because this random driver has had 1 video made about them in part by me, 2 by Danny, and 4 by Eric. I love watching the chat guess on this one. This random driver has never finished on the lead laps in the lead lap in the Daytona duels. Never had a lead lap finish in the duels.
Wow. I made 2 videos about them. Wow.
Each of this random driver's Daytona 500 runs were better finishes than the last run. So like, say they finished 43rd one year, the next year was 42nd, or it could be 41st the year after that or whatever, but it was always successfully better than the last. Like watching the chat right now, I think that this is crazy. This is one where I think I've thrown a majority of the chat off. The only laps that this random driver has led in their NASCAR career has been in the NASCAR Cup Series. No laps led in Xfinity or trucks, at least from what I could tell. By the way, we're closing in on the end. So Danny has 2 guesses. Grant has 1. This random driver has also won twice in the Asian Le Mans Series. We are on the second page.
And the what series?
The Asian Le Mans Series. At least that's what it said on their wiki.
Hmm.
We have, by the way, 6 guesses or clues. So burn a guess if you have it or if you want to. This random driver's best non-super speedway cup finishers were at Bristol, Charlotte, Indianapolis, and Darlington. Nothing? This random driver has Asperger's syndrome. At least according to, again, their wiki. But granted, for the most part, unless it's like heavily edited, driver wikis are pretty accurate. This random driver has been in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2017.
I'm just going to say it because of the family's ties to some of those other series you mentioned. Is it Cody Ware?
Is that your guess?
Yes.
That's correct. Cody Ware.
All right.
Literally the
Oh,
next.
that's so disappointing.
Literally the
That's
next
cheap.
one was going to be this random driver's best finish was a 4th at Daytona. Just on the
So
nose.
when you mentioned the Daytona finish is getting better, and I'm also thinking,
By the
all these
way,
other series.
other than like 1 or 2 people, I stumped the chat too. So this is like the first time in a long time I've stumped the chat.
Oh, so I got it before they didn't. I got it before the chat.
Yeah, most of the chat was
Wow.
most of the chat
Danny,
was
I've been
off.
thinking Cody Ware for a few questions too, but I didn't want to do it until you burned one more
Well,
guess.
and also
That's
when he said he
trash.
had Asperger's, I couldn't remember exactly. I knew Cody had said something. He had something before. I couldn't remember what it was, and it was that. So,
But yeah, the chat didn't get it. That's crazy, man.
wow. So I got a true win. Wow.
Good job.
Very impressive.
Let's move on. Final bit of the night. Let's get to Darlington here. A doubleheader with the Cup and Xfinity Series for the Southern 500 weekend. Couple notes. First off, SVG is in Cup in the 16, and in the Xfinity Series, Chase Elliott's in the 17, and Christopher Bell is in the number 20 car, I believe, this weekend. Yes, he is. Got it right in my notes. Xfinity is a Sports Clips haircut VFW Help a Hero 200. I'm literally just going to call it the Sports Clips
Just
200.
call it Sports Clips 200. All that extra.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a good thing, but it's a little mouthful, guys.
Yeah, 147 laps, 45, 45, 57 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, USA Network and MRN, as well as NBC Sports app and Sirius. It's going to be a hot one. 92 degrees, partly cloudy, 24% chance of rain. Defending winner of this race is old Dennis Hamlin. Southern 500 on Sunday, 367 laps, 115, 115, 137 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. USA Network, NBC Sports app is where you can watch it. MRN and Sirius is where you can listen to it. Forecast not looking too great that night. 93 degrees, getting a little cooler as the night goes on. Scattered thunderstorms throughout the night, around a 55% chance of rain. Kyle Larson is your defending winner. And here's the part the chat's been looking forward to all night. The pick points, they are leading at 391. Me and Eric are tied, but because I have more cup wins and just wins in general, correct, I have won the tiebreaker, minus 21, same as Eric. Danny, minus 25 in the basement.
I did gain, though. I was like minus 29 last week.
Yeah, you did gain. But that's going to lead us to our picks. Grant, you're our guest. Who is going to win the Xfinity race this weekend?
I've got Justin Allgaier. He's got a top 3 car on average on intermediate tracks this year. He's nearly 3 whole points ahead of the second place guy on median lap rank on on intermediate tracks. Had the fastest car in the year in the spring. Hard to go against the guy.
Kind of figured you'd take that one. That's why I had Justin my second pick all along. So my first pick is in this race. Doesn't come into series that often, but I think his second career victory was at this track. So I'm going to go Chase Elliott to win this one.
That was one of the picks that Eric had. His other pick is the Bell. Christopher Bell is Eric's pick this weekend, which leaves me with somebody that always seems to end up close to the front or at the front racing at Darlington. I'm going to go Austin Hill on this one. I know that he's not maybe the flashiest one, but he's been one that just manages to find his way up there. Chat is going 00 outside of I saw a few 15s, but I don't think.
Yeah, it was a lot of Cole Custer from the very beginning. Is Barry sorry, not Barry. Is Bell in the 20 car this weekend or 19?
20, I think.
20, okay.
Yeah. So now who's going to suck in the Cup race this weekend?
I've actually got Chris Buescher not because of anything that he's going to do wrong, not because of the speed that I expect that car to be plenty fast, but because there's just something about NASCAR playoffs to where every time there's like kind of pressure, but not really pressure, and you just kind of got to show up, weird things start happening. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to happen.
I'm kind of in that boat too. But Danny, you give yours. Eric, by the way, didn't give Suck or Dark Horse, which is fine. So Danny.
I said it earlier. Kyle Busch. The season's over.
You talk about that playoff side of it and when pressure's on and other things like that, and talked about how it's just been rough for him earlier. I'm going to go Martin Truex Jr. I don't know what it is in the next gen era. That dude's like cursed here. He's always fast, but never can get the finishes. And the chat.
Corey LaJoy.
Yeah, it's a dog pile at this point. All right, Dark Horse this weekend.
I've gone for the obvious. I got to take my boy Eric Jones. I don't have a choice. Here's the best argument I can make. Of the 3 out of the 5 last intermediate tracks we've run, our speed hasn't been bad. We ranked 18th at Charlotte, 13th at Pocono, 22nd at Michigan. And as I said, we're going back to another mile and a half now that we've been to before. Our sim data should be more accurate. We'll see if it translates.
You didn't have to make any argument. I'm with you. Eric Jones. Chat's saying Eric Jones too.
Yeah, everyone's there, Jones, but me. I'm going to take your argument earlier about Josh Berry. I think he's someone worth watching.
That's probably the smarter decision, but sometimes you got to go with the heart, not the head.
Hey, it's still, heart can really work in this sport. It really can. But that leaves us with one last pick here. Who is going to win this week in the Southern 500?
I'm sorry, guys. I've been super boring this week. I'm going to be super boring again. Tyler Reddick's going to win. He was the fastest car per median lap rank in the spring. He's got the second fastest car on intermediate tracks this year. He's the second best passer in the series going to a track that's not easy to pass at. All the data points to Tyler Reddick. It's all lining up.
All the data does point to Tyler Reddick, and I knew you were probably going to take him. So again, just like Allgaier, I had him as my second pick because I knew he'd probably be gone. So I'm going to go with the heart on this one. He doesn't get raced like an idiot this time, and Chris Buescher pulls it off.
That's an interesting pick, and that leaves Eric with Denny Hamlin. Eric's going to have Denny Hamlin this weekend in the Cup race, which leaves me the defending winner. I'm going to go Kyle Larson. I think he won't wreck this one. He wrecked in the spring. He got his wreck of Darlington out of the way. He's what, 50% crash rate, you said?
Yep. 50-50.
We'll go 50-50 at Darlington because he had a pretty damn fast car at Darlington earlier this year. Beautiful car too. And so we look at, let's see, we have a lot of 24s. I know earlier we had a lot of 8s.
I've seen a lot of 8s. I'm seeing some 21s. I think those are just kind of trying to joke.
Hey man, if they're gonna put it in there like that, that's on them. But if it's the same one, like Ross Crash Stain every time, I'm looking
mainly
at you.
him.
So we're not gonna give him 21 then.
I'll give him 8, 24. I took 17. I keep saying that. You guys can't have that one.
See a lot of people typing out Byron too.
Yeah, we'll give him the
I'd
poll.
put it between the 8 and 24.
Again, what year is this? 2004? Put the poll up. And if it's just a landslide anyway, then they'll get who they want. I have a feeling they'll go swing towards 24. That's what it's looking like. We'll let it roll. Wait, I don't think we even need to let it roll. Well,
I'm actually shocked they're going to Byron because he's kind of just disappeared as the year's gone on.
he gets good at the end, man.
What can you tell us about Byron there, Grant? I mean, what's been his year looking like?
Maybe you know what? I did retweet Larson's team rankings graph on Twitter during this show, so you guys can go see that. I'll post Byron's after the show's over. But let's take a quick higher level look at Byron. Speed wise, he's a little bit behind his teammates or his teammate Larson.
I'll say he
He's
can't be
just
behind the
been
48.
yeah, no, no, no. He's been too mediocre at everything and not excellent at anything. He's been close but not quite there. And he's had a struggling summer and a hot start to the year, and he'll probably get hot late again because that's what he seems to do. He's restarting well, he's passing well. It's just not converting to results. I don't really know why.
What's your prediction for him? Round of 12, unless he just gets hot.
Well, my personal prediction is a round of 8 for Byron. The auto racing analytics algorithm has Byron in the final four, and I
Wow.
can see it. The road to the final four that the algorithm is pointing to makes a lot of sense. I know he's had such a struggling summer, and the algorithm doesn't care. It kind of looks that over and is like, no, no, this team is who they are still.
They've
So
they're good in the
I don't know.
playoffs. They've been good in the
They
playoffs the
are.
last couple of years,
What I
man.
like about Grant's algorithm and why you guys need to be following along with everything he does, if you follow for college football, if you follow Josh Pate and his he has a weekly rank not a ranking system because it's not a ranking system, it's a rating system. It's an algorithm driven system where it favors teams on neutral sites and just kind of does the same way for NASCAR purposes, where it tosses out bias, it tosses out opinions, and it just goes off of straight what the computer models thinks would win. And I kind of like if you want to get a true non-biased opinion on way racing looks, go to Grant.
Well, we got an answer to our poll. It is clear and a defiant win for William Byron for the chat. They got Willie B in the 24, which leads us to, guys, we're almost to the finish line. Let's get to the white flag here. The second super chat stage break, starting with Grid Flow for the 2, says head scratcher. Fans like Harrison Burton's win, but hate the playoffs. Echoing what Daniel Trotta said this week. I don't think it's a head scratcher. I think we like seeing underdog victories. We just don't like the playoffs, but that could just be a wild guess, I guess. Ross Crash Stain, as the 10-month member chat says, with the music, Fireball, Pitbull, and Daniel Suarez. And then Mom 9098 says, and that's not my mom. My mom is mother of all icebergs. But Mom 9098 is a new member to the channel. I appreciate that. Rocks Reviews and Reactions for the 2 says, howdy boys. Good to have Grant back on board. Yes, it is. Grant, I think, again, this is another marathon episode we've had you on. So thank you for bearing with it.
I think the first one we went like 2.5 hours or something. If you have me on, it's just guaranteed they're going to break all the news, and then we don't get to talk much stats anyway. So,
we'll just get Grant on every week. And that would be the biggest news year ever. Andrew, for the 5 here, says, Jarrett, I want your thoughts on Oasis coming back, and who do you think is going to be Rookie of the Year in 2025? Well, seeing how Rookie of the Year is based mostly on who makes the playoffs, like with Cole Custer, unless they've changed it, because I'll be honest, I don't follow that stuff. I have a feeling SVG. As for Oasis coming back, I've never been an Oasis fan, but that's nice. Cool. I mean, good for Oasis fans. Everyone seems to be having comebacks nowadays. As long as they're alive, they'll have a comeback. Except for, the majority of Led Zeppelin. Fred Dog for the 5 says, I want to pile on LaJoy, but Larson is looking real dumb ever since that boast against Verstappen. Championship contender that keeps making rookie mistakes. That's been Larson for a long time, though. Like 2021, man, that was the outlier year. Like that, 10 wins, didn't have as many crazy mistakes. That's just that you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's Kyle Larson in a nutshell. Enter Das with 3-month member chat says, did I spend hours on drafty cars? Yes, I did. I've seen a lot of people on that.
I got my first dub yesterday. It felt so good. It's great.
I have not played it.
I have, and I'll admit, and hopefully it's gotten a little bit better, but I deleted it instantly when I realized how heavy ad driven it was, and you can't you couldn't move on to do another race without watching like 2 ads, and I was like, I know he's gonna pay for it, but I'm not gonna do that every time I want to play the game. But what I did play of it, it may very well be one of the best stock car mobile games made recently.
Nice.
I think it's gotten a little better because I didn't download it on launch, but now I think it is I think it's usually an ad every time, but it's never been two. I've never seen anything like that.
If the ads have gone down, I'll re-download it. But and I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because ads pay for YouTube, but I don't need an ad every time I finish a race.
A Prada for the 10 says, "Hey NWP, congrats to Harrison on the win. Can we just appreciate the race calling by Lee Diffie? The man is as good as Alan Bestwick. I hope Lee calls NBC races and Alan calls Prime races in 2025. Well, on the Alan side of it, he is following the Prime Sports account now, for what that's worth. Though he could just be following it because he loves sports. Because that's Alan. Anytime I've talked to Alan Bestwick, that man just loves sport and is top class. But Lee Diffie is also top class. I know a lot of people will probably be like, that's heresy, but I think they're closer than people think. Need for Speed for the 13-month member chat says LaJoy and Larson were, I'm not going to read those, but you almost got me. I don't want the YouTube overlords to take me down for stuff that's not my fault, even if they are jokes. Rocks Reviews and Reactions for the 2 says Truex has good cars every week. Bad luck ruins runs. He has had pretty bad luck since he announced his retirement. Rouser for the 5. And I know he's trolling a little bit with this too, but he says, imagine the 0-16 Titans make the playoffs because they beat the Chiefs in week 17 because they were resting their starters. That is what Harrison Burton's win is. Ridiculous system.
Well, that's not right to say that because I'd be all for that.
But we're all hypocrites for our own teams.
Yeah.
Nas Carson for the 5 says, hey, NWP guys, Daytona, Xfinity, and Cup. Too many wrecks, as usual, but great to see underdog wins, especially the Wood Brothers Racing 100th win. Yeah. Isaac for the 5 says, dating advice. Find someone who's a Denny Hamlin fan because they have to be the most loyal person on the planet to stand by a driver after countless heartbreaks. Well, I did find a converted Denny Hamlin fan that is my fiance, and I'm a Vikings fan, so I'm loyal too. So we'll have like the most loyal marriage ever. Just might not have rings involved. Sorry, I had to add in there. Bailey for the 2 says, Ryan Truex won a super speedway before MTJ Wild. Well, MTJ won in the Xfinity series, but not in the Cup series. 2 more shots. Bobby for the 5 says, Ryan Truex deserves a full-time Xfinity ride. Somebody give this man some damn funding. Yeah. Nas Carson with a couple more here says, get rid of the playoffs if you're not fans of the 21 in it. Only do final race of the season and no playoffs where the top 4 in points are equal. And then says, I heard John Ramos part of the time at the Milwaukee Mile Truck Race, even though not much action happened except a first-time winner. Yeah, John might have called the last Milwaukee NASCAR race. That's wild.
That is wild.
Carl for the 2 says, Dega was October 20th. In 25, that race is 34. Yeah, but it wasn't race 34 that late in the year. We're not talking about the weather. We're talking about where it is in a very finicky system. It has never been on the schedule race-wise later than race 33 ever before, and even then that was the chase where at least we had 9 other races at the time to make up for it, and not just 2 races, or really 1 after the fact with Martinsville. But I know there's a lot of people that will be happy with it. NASCAR again for a 10 says, I'm disappointed that NASCAR has dropped Wisconsin tracks off their schedule for the top 3 series. Guess I should be an IndyCar fan like David Land since they're on board with Wisconsin fans. Telling you, don't burn that Wisconsin fan. They're very loyal. Even if I don't root for their teams, I respect that they are loyal to their teams. Alessandro for the 10 Do you guys think Kyle Larson winning the 2021 championship was the best but also worst thing to happen to his career? Since his championship triumph, he has crashed way more than ever before. He won a championship. I don't think it's bad. It
didn't change. He's always been this guy.
It just set the bar high.
Speed masks everything. It happens.
And he's still a hell of a driver. He's just has a bad streak right now. Fred Dog for a 10 here says, does Eric need a waiver to be in the NWP playoffs, or is he banned from the last 10 episodes? Be honest, you sabotaged his internet in revenge for chicken rankings, didn't you? Don't. Shh. You're on to me. Mitch for the Australian 15 says, as an Australian, I'm glad for SVG that Mexico will be a road course, but I'm surprised NASCAR isn't using the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez 1 mile oval layout. I know they did a reconfiguration. I'm not familiar on it, so maybe they still have that oval layout, but they probably just want whatever is marketable to an international audience, which is not oval racing, even though I would love oval racing around. Mitch also says the 80s and 90s Australian NASCAR series actually raced at Mount Panorama, Bathurst in the late 90s. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. The more you know. Damn. Our viewers are really good at finding those things for us. Much appreciated. West Virginia with the Patrick Star profile pic for the 5 says, as a SoCal fan, please come to San Diego, or at least until Fontana is finished being rebuilt.
Will it get finished?
I know people I've talked to out there that keep tabs of it say it's not dead, with more information on it than I have. It's basically it's only dead until it gets built over. For now, it's still very much alive in the local area, even if it's just local media. Austin Blanset left 2 here for the 5. In all seriousness, why are we taking 2 fan favorite tracks out of the playoffs for 2 tracks that race the same? New Hampshire racing is awful. We just need to wet it down, man. It was a lot of fun.
Sprinklers.
Yes, let's do it like Dover does. And then says, Jarrett, can an episode 1 viewer get a birthday shout out? Happy birthday, Austin. Happy birthday. Yes, you can. That is the answer. 2 more here. One from Bobby Blair for the 2. No comment, but I appreciate it. And then Hunter Nixon Fishing for the 5. Last one on here says, y'all people quit hating on Lee Diffie. He's a damn good announcer. I think we haven't hated on him, but I know a lot of people on social media have, which I don't get.
He has a great voice. It's meant for all motorsports, not just one particular.
People say I'm glazing him, but I did get chills on that last lap by his call. It was a damn good call, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the first time in a while I've heard a call, and I'm like, that's gonna be remembered, and not for a meme, but because it's a really good call. Like Rick Allen, I think has gotten much better. I just can't hold a candle to Lee Diffie. But there's been some where I'm like, oh, that's going to get remembered as a meme. 30,000 in Prosper, Texas. He's a world-class announcer, and I think NASCAR fans just got to get used to him. But I know some people might not agree. But y'all, we have finally reached the end of the night. I appreciate everybody at home sticking around with us. Grant, I appreciate you sticking with us. You stuck around longer than one of our co-hosts did tonight by about 2 3/4 hours. So appreciate it.
What can I say? I think all of his followers should move and follow me, because clearly I'm more loyal to my craft than he is.
I'm gonna tell him you said that real quick. Andrew Winslow for the 2 says, Mr. Frog says hello. Smiling Friend fans will get that one. But where can they find you in your very well harnessed craft?
Oh gosh. Autoracinganalytics.com. If you want to get any of the stats I talked about tonight, go over to that website, and you can subscribe, and you can get all the stats there. I also post a whole bunch of stuff on Twitter. That's AR_analytics, Auto Racing Analytics on Twitter. I post stuff about like how the speed would have just netted out over the course of the race if it was just based on speed. I post the crash rates every once in a while. I just post a few updates on stats, and then if you want to see the full list, you can do that on the website.
We appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have you on again. in the future. And be sure to follow him. I will be sure to add all of your info down below. We do have Eric's link down there as we do with Danny, so be sure to subscribe to him and the main NWP channel that we re-upload all the episodes on. So in case anyone misses it, you can watch it there if you want, but you won't be watching it live with us, and we will be very sad not to have you there. But we also remind you each week when episodes will be up as well. So you got a lot of fail safes in that way. But thank you guys so much for coming on out tonight. Thank you to Austin for the 5, leaving another super chat saying, I was just wondering if you wanted to hang out with me and fill our bellies with diet soda and play Burnout Revenge on the PS2. I would love that. And that's a great way to end off. Thank you guys for watching tonight. We'll see you next week on Eric's channel, September 4th, Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Have fun, y'all. Next time you see us, playoffs will be on. Later.
Drivers!